It's going to be
rolling.
boring, okay? So educational, bland, and underbite.
PBS, public broadcasting
Yeah.
Service.
service.
If it sounds like you can fall asleep to it, that's what we're going for. That's the energy.
And guys,
Everyone get in character.
today we're
And
talking
scene.
about the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, and PBS is not involved in that. I just want everyone to be very clear. PBS is not involved under the AMPTP. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Ha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la.
Red, yellow, leather, red, yellow, leather, leather, red, yellow,
Eeps, that was
leather.
rough.
red, yellow, leather.
I say yes to everything, honey.
What is that?
That's Lisa Rinna. Depends.
Oh, you know,
I say yes to everything.
She has been propelled in the back of my mind, and I haven't really thought about her since. I didn't.
Isn't that a wonderful place to live?
Yeah, I didn't.
How is she doing? Do you think she still has her SAG card?
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
Is she taking to the picket
by
lines?
the way,
You know
yeah,
what?
where is
should
she?
By the way, Lisa Rinna should be taken to the picket lines. I want the reality stars to go out there who have SAG cards.
Yeah,
Kyle,
and-
Garcelle, Rinna,
Oh,
That's
Garcelle,
right.
we love you. Now, Lisa,
Denise.
Lisa, there are cameras out there. People are taking pictures. People are filming.
There-
Lisa, you can get in front of the cameras. Come on, Renna.
We know that she values that.
We know that you want to, and people will
Lisa-
think that you're being selfless. This is a great look for you.
But Lisa, if you're listening, you have to be there for at least 3 hours. She can't.
That's the
She
benchmark.
can't pop in and pop out like Bronwyn did during BLM.
What?
Remember how they
Stop
accused
bringing up Bronwyn. You know what? I'm so sick of this. Two in a row.
during the Black Lives Matter movement, which is still ongoing? Obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
Bronwyn went out to protest, obviously with Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
And there was a picture that someone took of her. I think she was probably standing in front of the, like in the middle of the street, and she like had her hands up with her shirt, BLM. I'm adding that. I don't know if she was wearing a shirt with BLM, but I think she was. Kelly Dodd was standing right next to her wearing a hat that said Drunk Lives Matter.
Oh
that tracks.
God!
She wasn't actually there wearing that, guys.
Oh, but I do
She
remember.
did,
I do
yes.
remember that hat.
Which is gross. But anyway,
Yeah, that's
my whole
really
point in
gross.
all of this is that she's standing and there's a picture of her, and at the reunion, they accuse her of posing as a protester.
Oh, I vaguely remember this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Look, she was never going to get out of that because she offered her cocaine dealer to
oh yeah, oh yeah.
like some
You need the hookup? Let me know.
honestly, it was like right out of Boogie Nights.
She's like, I thought she was 18 and a half. I didn't know.
Stop. Okay. All right, guys. So, in discussing Lisa Rinna and all of her exploits as a reality star and a member of SAG-AFTRA, so I'm led to believe, we really want to see her out there protesting. But more importantly, the three of us are here today. Myself, all 50 pounds overweight of me.
God.
All extra 50-pound husky.
Oh my God.
So myself, Betsy, and
EP.
oh, that's right, executive producer.
Oh, yeah, that's me. Hi.
What?
Present.
Yes, you are
present.
Bueller.
Bueller.
Accounted for.
Accounted.
The three of us are here to bring you an episode to talk about the strike.
We gather
Yeah.
under these dark, dark times.
Seriously, grab your pitchforks and we need it done. I'm actually surprised that there's no one protesting here where we're at
Yeah.
because this strike affects everybody in
It's
all
too hot.
50
I'm sorry.
states.
I'm just gonna say on behalf of people living in Texas right now, you know, you can strike inside and take videos or something. No one needs to be outside right now in the heat.
I am currently striking as we speak right
Yeah,
now from
we're
the
s-
comfort of this air
Yeah.
conditioning.
In a sweatshirt with a
Yeah,
blanket.
strike
covering.
state of mind. State of mind in this.
I don't want to be too
the heart of
comfortable
Texas.
because striking is about building character, but I can't be so uncomfortable
Yeah.
when I'm outside.
That's
so
why she's wearing
that's
a
the
sweatshirt.
balance. Exactly. Thank you, Betsy.
I know you
Yeah.
can be overwhelmed and you can be
underwhelmed.
underwhelmed.
but
But can you ever just be whelmed? I think you can in Europe.
Yeah, Garcelle. Oh my God, Gabrielle Union is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Gabrielle Union is perfect in that movie.
Oh, that's so good.
Also, is she on the picket lines?
I don't know.
Who's on the picket lines? Have we seen who's out there?
We know Fran
I've
Drescher
seen a
is.
few.
Yeah,
I've seen
go
a few
Fran.
celebrities.
Go Fran.
I've seen Aubrey Plaza. I've seen now. Granted, I don't know how long they're staying out there or what the deal is, but Aubrey did give like a little interview. I did see, you know, one of the best Jennifers, Jennifer Gardner, had a sign up Again, don't know really how long she was out there, but I've seen a few celebrities like Busy Phillips and stuff. That
Okay, shocker. Busy Phillips on picket line?
Wait, SAG didn't revoke her card already?
Look,
I'm just telling you what my eyes saw.
what was the last thing she did? Dawson's Creek?
Okay,
Probably.
yeah.
Well, it wasn't the Busy Phillips show.
teasing.
That-
Busy? It took her so
Oh my
long to
God,
realize
she did have that talk show.
Yeah, like that 18,000 people watched or
Oh,
something
yeah.
abysmal
it
like
was
that.
50,000 live same day viewers.
Oh, okay.
Guys,
God.
I remember when that came out, and I remember being overwhelmed with her set, and then it dawned on me like that was intentional because it's busy tonight.
Oh,
and the
yeah,
set
yeah.
was busy.
A play on words. Yeah.
I'm good on the play on words.
Well,
It was
yes.
really
Just
distracting.
saying.
I also felt
Hard
really
pass.
bad because I was with my network executive who was overseeing that show, and we were talking at lunch one day because he was visiting a show that I was working on. And looking back on it, I think that I had a lot of gall. But he was totally fine with me discussing with him, like, what my quote issues were as an associate producer
Yeah.
with watching Betsy because I love Busy Phillips.
Yeah.
And, it ended up being canceled shortly after that, but there were just a lot of problems with that show. So Busy Phillips still has her SAG card, I'm going to assume.
Yeah, Busy don't come
suppose.
after us. We didn't cancel you.
Michelle Williams is paying her annual dues.
Oh.
Stop.
Sorry,
it.
I'm being an
Yeah,
asshole.
aren't you a Dawson Creek
Big
stan?
time, and I love her on Dawson's
And
Creek.
Cougar Town. We love Busy
and Cougar
Phillips.
Town, huge
Freaks
fucking
and
fan.
geeks for life.
Oh, freaks
and geeks.
for
I actually
life.
love Busy Phillips. She's just very easy to take shots at. And
Exactly.
it's all in jest.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the same way, by the way, we take shots at Sheena. We
my
love
God,
Sheena,
love
but we
Sheena.
can take shots at her.
Yeah, we love Busy.
We love Busy.
I was a true fan, and she only had 100,000 followers. I just want to be very clear about that. But yeah, anyway, all that to say, we're here because we were kind of propelled to want to discuss, the strike, reality television, how it affects all of us, because I think that there's this connotation that we're all kind of under the same umbrella, and we are, but the truth is we're kind of seen as, Betsy hates when I use this analogy, but we're kind of seen as the redheaded stepchildren
Oh.
of.
You have to have that redhead.
I know. I need to say. What else would you say?
No, that's
We're
the saying.
seen
It's okay.
as-
I go with the flow. It's cool.
We're
The ginger stepchildren.
we're seen as the bastards. Really, we have no home, but yet what we do contributes is significantly in a way that I think oftentimes goes unnoticed. And with everything going on with the WGA, SAG striking, even the strikes that we had last year with IATSE, and we're going to get into, for those who may not know all of the terminology, we'll get into all of that in a little bit. But the crux of us wanting to get together really was brought upon one Bethany Frankel.
Yes.
It's not to say that I don't think we would have thought about getting together to discuss this, but I don't know if we would have wanted to talk about it in the same way, only because it probably would have been a conversation that the three of us would just talk about.
Off mic.
Yeah, just like incidentally off mic. So with Bethany coming out and really, it's tough because I do support everything that she's saying, which is reality stars deserve residuals as well, which is one of the things that both the WGA and SAG are both fighting for. Totally understand that. I support that.
Absolutely.
I co-sign, I echo that. I have been echoing that probably since the day I stepped foot on my first show, which I think was a union show. I'm pretty positive, but more importantly, the real first job I ever had in this industry was The Bachelor. And that I can tell you unequivocally is a union show. So I am very, very, very aware of what I do in some ways agree with her in saying that reality stars are exploited. Because when I started on The Bachelor, that's when I found out that no one made money on that show. None of the contestants made money. The only people who made money were the people who worked on the show, obviously, and the Bachelor or the Bachelorette who was chosen, and they get one large fee. And I remember, I think at the time, it was probably $250,000. That was almost 12 years ago. So
Wow.
that's when I really first had a window into what I truly could understand and obviously contextualize that reality stars don't make the same type of money that other people do. However, it does vary from show to show, and we will get into that more. But with that said, in conjunction with everything that Bethany's saying, which I both agree and disagree with, because although I don't expect her, nor do I think the onus should be on her to speak out for the producers and all the little people, as they say, who work on these shows, it's a little disenfranchising and tone deaf for her to go out there and talk about reality stars and their residuals and how they should be supported and they need to go on strike and we should stop watching the shows, when we as the producers and the little people who make those shows helped her immensely get to where she was. It wasn't simply just her own brainchild and her own intellectual property. We were all there along the ride. I say that proverbially because obviously I wasn't there for Skinny Girl. I don't know what I would have done if I had to do that scene where she's riding around that Volkswagen Beetle. I'm Luann. So you drive that around the Hamptons?
Yeah.
So all that to say, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And so the three of us wanted to get together and talk about the overall effects in a way that Bethany Frankel, who has the platform to discuss these things and simply is not bringing them up, only in the sense that she wants to reference the layman, the nurse, the firefighter, the doctor, those types of
Working class
careers, which, by the way, we need those. No doubt about it. But her bringing that up and simply, and I'm going to say, I feel confident in saying this, choosing to not discuss everyone else is really a slap in the face, because without us, she would have no Skinny Girl that she sold to Jim Beam in 2009 for $120 million.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not to say that she doesn't deserve that, but I would be remiss, and she is being remiss, in not discussing all the other people. And it's also an embarrassment because the added layer to that is that she's also a producer.
Right.
And it's sad.
I feel like she also has a hero complex. Like, she's coming out, you know, even though she's not speaking for the behind the scenes producers, everyone, she's speaking for the reality stars, and nobody's sticking up for them. So I feel like she has like an eliteness about her that she thinks she's really doing something good.
Well, she's made it very clear. She wants nothing from this. This is not about her. It's about the principal.
And then cue the next interview.
To which I say, we're good. We don't need you standing on your platinum soapbox to explain to us the industry, because you yourself are specific in what you're mentioning. And it's just kind of, I don't know. We've talked about it's tone deaf. What else would you say? It's just kind of disappointing, honestly. I wasn't expecting this battle this week, honestly.
Yeah.
It was not on my bingo card, guys.
No.
It was not on my bingo card because I really like Bethany Frankel.
Generally speaking, I do as well. I just think that, as you so kind of aptly put it, getting atop her platinum soapbox, it's pretty tone deaf to have the housewife who is one of, if not the most wealthy, amassing her wealth from the show or endeavors tangential to it. So her sale of Skinny Girl for $120 million to Jim Beam, that was a direct reflection of the exposure and advertising that she got from Real Housewives of New York, which she has explained in Instagram videos is what led to the quote unquote Bethany clause, which allows networks to own a percentage of talent, outside endeavors for if they're promoting it on their platform. Having her be the one to kind of take to the soapbox it just feels a little demoralizing in a way when, she does have the eyeballs, she does have the followers and the platform to bring reality television into the spotlight to be a part of this conversation, which we should be. And I know we'll get into that side a little bit more, but for her to be kind of narrowing her focus to only reality stars and effectively lumping in all of the behind the scenes people who work tirelessly and for very low wages to create the content that gives them the platform, she's effectively lumping us in with the studios and the networks, where we're suffering from as many of the same strifes and setbacks and pitfalls that the SAG actors, the WGA writers, and Bethany and the reality talent are wanting to fight for. I'm all for reality being a part of the conversation. We should be a part of the conversation. I just don't like the way that we are being pulled into it and the narrow focus with which
it's one-sided.
Now exactly. And it's getting press because it's Bethany, so it's getting traction, and it's getting headlines and pickup across the web. But again, in any of the articles that I've read, not once in those are we talking about behind the scenes. We're only talking about the talent, and it should be an all-encompassing conversation.
And to almost break it down in its simplest form, just to give you guys a little context, every scene that Bethany had Skinny Girl products in, and I'm talking about scenes that were not in her own home or her office, cast trips, events, et cetera, et cetera.
Every scene.
Every scene.
So every scene she was in.
So every item that you're seeing of Skinny Girl, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I want executive producer to confirm or deny this, because she worked on Running Out. She didn't work on the Bethany seasons, but as a segment producer, I would just want to break this down. The segment producers are the people who set up the scenes from a visual standpoint. What I mean by that is They're there to help field producers, the crew get in, tell you where you're allowed to film, where you're allowed to be, what things on the wall are cleared, what's not cleared. They'll tell me or whomever is going to be there as the producer who's running the scene what we're allowed to film, what we're not allowed to film. That way that I have my eyes and ears open and I'm not filming something that is going to have to be blurred out later, which no one wants to see, right? They're also there to help set up all the other stuff. Like if there's a cheese platter or there's wine or there's anything that needs to be involved in the scene, they're there to ensure that those items are there before the scene starts so that we are adequately prepared. And what includes that are the Bethany items that say skinny girl this and skinny girl that. She may have done the due diligence and the coordination to get those items to wherever they needed to go, but the segment producers are there by and large to set all that stuff up. That in and of itself, in the simplest form, are the little people making sure that Bethany's products are out there, visually seen for the camera so that she can promote her shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
So what's that about? I guess we're not involved because she made the deal, which by the way, I love that she was able to kind of circumvent in a way that she did create the Bethany clause. I love all of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she was able to do that. I just am very disappointed that, you know, she acknowledges that reality stars are disenfranchised within our industry and then goes on to say that there are other industries outside of the entertainment industry that are also disenfranchised based on our economy, where we're at, et cetera, but then just doesn't mention us, which is by design. I want to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
Because Bethany Frankel never does anything haphazardly. So,
Yeah.
yeah. We exploit.
We exploit.
We
We're
exploit everybody.
The great exploiters.
I mean, I know that she's talking about the networks and the conglomerates, but the problem with this rhetoric is that then people assume that it's us
Yeah.
too.
They're like,
Right.
yeah.
And that's the
Because
problem.
nobody's thinking really about the networks. Nobody really thinks about that. They think
Well-
about like producers and I mean,
Exactly. So when she's
I'm
in
not
this-
thinking about that.
when she's being interviewed by Entertainment Tonight, she goes on to say that reality stars really sacrifice a lot. They're exploiting themselves, but at what cost? Quote, "We are exposing ourselves, our family, our lives, our children. And at what price? Reality television exploits affairs, bankruptcy, falling off the wagon, not really having what you say you have, saying something inappropriate, risking cancellation every single time the camera goes on. I understand that that is a risk that every reality star takes. That's not lost on me. But at the same time, at what point do we not take responsibility for our own actions?
Yeah.
At what point does that not become the person that you just are and you're showing yourself to be? I understand that residuals are important for that because you are sacrificing that. So what she's telling me is a cast member is risking cancellation by saying something inappropriate and they need residuals for that. It just doesn't, I mean, it just feels like very tone deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah,
It absolutely does.
shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to Reality Bites, the podcast where we'll deep dive into this week's buzziest reality TV and pop culture happenings.
I'm Betsy, and while I may be 9 to 5 by day, I'm a reality connoisseur by night.
And I'm JJ, a reality TV producer by trade, but my favorite pastime is dishing unfiltered dirt and behind-the-scenes scoop. We'll tackle the biggest and best water cooler moments of the week through an insider lens you won't find anywhere else.
Buckle up, buttercups.
Please don't tell me it's about Tom.
It's about Tom.
This is Reality Bites. All right, guys. So before we get into the brass tacks of everything that's going on, I think that it's important to kind of give the listeners a little bit of an explanation as to who everyone is.
And
Totally.
Betsy.
And
And Betsy, the listeners and Betsy.
I represent the
listeners and
people
Betsy.
in this case.
yes, you do. Oh my God, you
the
are.
people versus
The people.
Larry Flynn.
You are the voice of a generation. You're the voice of the people.
That's too much. That's too much pressure.
That's too much pressure right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys. So we want to kind of just give you a little bit of a quick understanding of like who the key players are in the strike, right? So we've got the AMPTP, which is the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, which is the entertainment industry's official collective bargaining representative. They're the key trade association for all major film and television, right? The companies that are in the AMPTP, which all of you are going to know, they're all the conglomerates. We've got Paramount Pictures, Sony Pictures, Universal Pictures, Walt Disney Studios, Warner Brothers, Comcast, Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon. I was going to say ABC, but they're owned by Disney, who has major stake in Hulu. I mean, the list goes on and on. It is
so confusing.
Very, very, very layered. Some of these companies own Pixar, DreamWorks. They own it all.
Yeah.
Anything that you see on television, maybe outside of commercials, but even then, it's product placement. They're all owned by everybody. All right. So where we're at right now is we've got the WGA and SAG-AFTRA who are striking against the AMPTP. SAG-AFTRA is the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. The WGA is the Writers Guild of America. Then we have IATSE, which is also a key player, but they are not on strike right now. They actually went on strike last year. And they ended up negotiating a contract, which I know that a lot of people were still unhappy for, but they're still key players, and it's important to talk about them as well. And IATSE is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Moving Picture Technicians, Artists, and Allied Crafts of the United States, its territories, and Canada. IATSE represents probably what I would imagine like the layman would think of, like camera, lighting, like those types.
It's like kind of the Teamsters of the entertainment
Yes.
industry.
Like
It's
technical kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Art department.
Leave it.
Art department, grips and electric, camera operators, more technical side of things.
Okay.
Correct. So where we're at right now with the strike, we've got the WGA and SAG-AFTRA have both gone on strike, something that we have not seen since 1960. It's big, guys.
Yeah.
Big time.
Huge.
Big. And to put it quite frankly, and we'll get into the nuance of it later, they're really asking for things that are pretty fair. And baseline for both of them, they're asking for a base salary increase year over year to account for inflation, AI-generated scripts for the WGA, and likeness, voice, etc. for SAG. 2% residuals for income generated on streaming platforms. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, when you think about what television is bringing in year after year, 2% really is not a lot.
And it is an industry standard that was set in one of the last couple of strikes. I believe it was a WGA strike that ultimately led to the 2% residual kind of benchmark. They're just asking for their fair share of wages given the current entertainment landscape and how we as consumers are ingesting our media and our content.
By and large, what's changed in our industry are streamers.
It's tech.
There's no ad sales. That's where we get a lot of our money to make
Yeah.
the television shows, both reality, scripted, miniseries, what have you.
Everything.
That's where we get our money from. So the problem here is, which was also a problem in 2007, 2008, when the writers' strike happened for 100 days. I think it started in December, went into February.
Yeah.
They had a problem with e-com and the way that we were, as you said, executive producer, ingesting the media.
Right.
But back then, it wasn't streamers.
We didn't have what we have now.
It was
No,
the
not at all.
beginning of it.
Exactly.
I think it's interesting that in this strike, and also remembering living through the 07, 08 writer's strike, and not really the ones prior to that, but
Were you alive?
Well, yeah, there was one in
Okay.
1988,
Okay.
Wow.
but I was
Wow.
born in it too.
Striking from the
Yeah.
crib, guys.
Whoop, whoop. I will be no scab. But what I found so interesting, and it makes sense, is that every major strike in entertainment, either SAG or WGA, has been born out of technological changes and advancements in the landscape. You referenced 1960, which is the last time that there was a dual strike from both unions against the studios. And that came on the heels of consumer televisions in the home becoming a more popular entity. Films that had theatrical releases, of which the studio contracts and actor contracts and writer contracts were based upon. Well, now all of a sudden you have your features being shown at home in every
On the TV.
television in America, and they're not getting paid appropriately for it. So that led to the last dual strike. 1988, it was residuals with the introduction of the cable television landscape and home video. In
Oh my God, VHS.
Oh, home
that,
video.
That was 88.
VHS was a big
Huge.
key component in this because it costs so much to make VHSs,
Right.
which means it costs a lot to sell them, which means why aren't they making the money?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then in the 07-08 strike for the writers, it was one of the things on the table were DVD residuals because that was a big part of, DVD sales were huge in the early aughts, TV box sets for series, things like that. And it was also the inception of new media. They ended up giving way on the DVD residuals in lieu of stricter residuals for new media because 2007 was the year that Netflix started streaming. YouTube was already in its inception, as was iTunes renting and buying certain features.
But with Netflix, you mean streaming in the sense of
Library.
sending out the DVDs?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Netflix started in 1997 as the at-home. In 2007, they took to online and they started streaming their content libraries.
Do I not remember that?
I had to look this up just to be clear. I
don't remember
I had to
that.
do a
we
little
were in,
research on
we were in
this.
college when I remember watching things on the computer, but like it was very, very, very limited to what you could stream. I would say the mass majority is you would have to rent be in the queue for the DVD.
For the DVD.
that you wanted.
But they started-
But they did have a limited amount of
Oh,
stuff they had
wow.
on.
How do I not
speed
remember that?
started being
Because
able to
that's what I was
support
doing
that.
instead of going to class.
There you go.
Guys, and she thought,
Caesar degrees,
she was
guys.
going to have no
C's are
contribution.
degrees.
Here I am, the producer, being like, la, 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 AMPTP. And I'm like, what? 2007? You
Yeah.
could stream?
I didn't think it was that early either.
I also didn't have a
That's
desktop. I mean, I didn't have a laptop. I had a desktop.
Oh,
There you go.
I did too, and I still made it work.
Still made it work.
Oh,
That's effort
bravo,
right
bravo.
there.
Fucking
Bravo.
So, so Netflix in 2007 and all of these other things, new media, as they called it then, it was like the precursor to streaming. It was before Netflix became its own entity, right? And or its own kind of content creation entity.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is Netflix is the linchpin that fucked this up for everyone. Netflix is,
I know.
It's really true. And, to talk just without boring, but to talk a little bit about the state of the industry and kind of what got us here, which affects all facets of the industry from SAG and WGA to what we do to the Teamsters and IATSE and everyone, is our entire industry since really 2007, 2008, but I'll even shorten it and say 2013 when House of Cards came out and Netflix
Game
dropped.
changer, guys.
Was that the first
Yes.
Yeah.
original
House of
content?
Cards.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if that came first or Orange is the New Black.
that came first. Orange is the New Black came second.
was after? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean that was something that's a show that cost $4 million an episode to make. Netflix wooed Kevin Spacey, who was one of the biggest actors at the
Yeah.
time, albeit we know he's more than a little problematic now.
Garbage.
And David Fincher, who's one of the best
Right.
directors
Oh
of
my
all
God,
time, to
David
helmet.
Fincher.
Yeah.
And it put them on the map
And
in a
Robin
way.
Wright. Let's not
And
forget about her,
fucking
the
Robin
queen.
Robin Wright.
God,
Robin
so hot.
motherfucking Wright. Love her.
Yeah.
But it put Netflix on the map in a way that scared all of the other media companies.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're not only offering their subscribers ad-free content, they're also not rolling it out week to week. They're giving you all episodes up front, watch it as you
Yeah.
will.
Something different from HBO where you still had to wait week to week.
Exactly. So it put everyone into a little bit of a tailspin and it got them into a bit of a dick sizing contest rat race.
She stole my line.
I did. That you gave me that line.
I was literally
Dick
going to
sizing.
chime in. I was like, they're all whipping their dicks out and they're all saying whose dick is bigger.
That's correct.
And they're not paying attention with a 30,000 foot view
to what's happening.
what the problems are going to be down the pike.
So after Netflix started releasing original programming and everyone started to freak out, basically these major studios like Disney, ABC Disney, like Comcast, NBC Universal, like Fox, they all started to rush to try to find an in-house streamer which could be a pipeline for their content and give them a subscription model of profit. What this essentially, and this is a quote from a Vulture article, which kind of sums it up pretty well. Everything became big tech. The Amazon model of, we don't actually have to make money, we just have to show shareholder growth. Everyone said, great, this seems like the thing to do, which essentially was like, let's all commit ritual suicide. Let's take one of the truly successful money printing inventions in the history of the modern world, which is the carriage system with cable television, and let's just end it and reinvent ourselves as tech companies, where we pour billions down the drain in pursuit of a return that is completely speculative, still this many years into it.
It's a failure of epic proportions.
Epic proportions.
I mean, just from my own memory, I would say an executive producer and I have discussed this. Maybe 3.5 years ago, I started having conversations with her and just talking about our industry and how it's changing, seeing the iceberg right ahead and saying, we got to move. We have to steer clear. This is going to absolutely upend our industry. And I can see it. Every time there was a new app that came out, not app, but
Streaming app,
a streaming app that we had to download. The more I had to add those to the queue, the more I realized this cannot sustain itself. Because one, the consumers are paying for every independent and individual app, which is expensive. After it adds up, you're basically paying for cable. They're not going to want to do that anymore. Or they're going to skinny down and unsubscribe based per month, really. Like, you know, you subscribe to something, you watch the show, you unsubscribe.
Right. It's almost like they're going to appointment subscribe as opposed to
Essentially,
appointment view. Like, you know that this show is coming out on this streamer this month. I want to watch that. So I'm going to subscribe for a month and then unsubscribe.
Exactly. Especially because they would release all the episodes at once. It's only in the last like year or so,
They started
probably a year and a
rolling them
half.
out.
Stop doing that.
They stopped doing that.
And
You
this
guys-
is why.
Yeah, we see it with Maisel.
Yeah.
As an example, for those who watch it, they used to release all the episodes, and then they started doing 2 episodes every week.
Is that so you keep your subscription longer? Is that what that is for? Okay.
Maybe not with Amazon specifically,
But
but with
it-
others.
Yeah.
Like Netflix.
Yeah, I just noticed that because I started watching The Lincoln Lawyer because Nev Campbell was in it. And the first season it came out, which was last year, I think there were like 10 episodes. Normal Netflix fashion,
All at
they
once.
released all 10 episodes. And this was only a year ago. Now, the second season came out. I want to say it came out a month ago. They only released 5 episodes.
Oh,
and I was
I
like,
didn't
what the
realize-
fuck is this?
They're trying to hook you in.
Yeah,
so
and so
that
then
you
they're
don't
like the next,
unsubscribe.
and it's true because it wasn't like wait a week. It was like August, come in August, which was like a month later. They were like, we're going to give you the other like the next 5.
Yeah.
But I guess that would make sense if it's like another month of a subscription.
They did the same thing with the Meghan and Harry documentary.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch that.
It was in July, and then the second half came in August.
Yeah.
So they're doing that, and I'm sure you guys have noticed. It's because people are unsubscribing and they're not making any money.
Exactly. And with the entertainment's move essentially towards mirroring a Silicon Valley type of company, what happened was in this rat race of like figuring out how to maximize profits in this new Wild West landscape of streaming, there were also these concurrent mega mergers that were happening, consolidating huge sectors of the entertainment industry into only a few companies, as JJ mentioned before, which also meant that any of these companies that previously were not publicly traded now are.
Yes.
So instead of looking towards actual bottom lines, actual profit loss statements, they were instead inflating numbers for their shareholders and for the stock price and ballooning a bubble that is now essentially going to burst. So you think about it this way, like a lot of these streamers, these new streamers, even the ones who have libraries of content like a Disney Plus or like a Hulu,
Yeah.
they spent themselves into billions of dollars of debt building these libraries, and subscription fees will not grow and haven't grown fast enough to close that gap. It's if platforms like Netflix make any money at all, it's a fraction of what the entertainment companies used to make back when more than 105 million US households spent an average of $75 a month on cable. They are cannibalizing their profits, but because they're getting infusions of cash from venture capitalist firms in Wall Street of hundreds of millions of dollars and sometimes billions of dollars, they are looking like their stock prices are inflated in the hundreds per share, when in reality, their numbers, which they keep proprietary, and we're going to talk about that because that's a big piece of this,
Big problem.
might paint a very different picture. So, good.
Oh, I was just going to liken to when telecommunications merged.
Yes.
And we had to deal with net neutrality.
Absolutely.
The government had to step in and go, we can't have everybody operating under one conglomerate. That's not fair to the people. We don't have a choice in what companies we use for telecommunications.
Exactly.
Everything that executive producer said also just gave me chills. I mean, obviously I know what's going on, but in hearing it that way, it's terrifying because it's very similarly to the 2008 financial crisis, when we thought that we had all of this money to spend.
Yeah.
When in reality, everybody who was taking out loans for next to no interest, they had no earthly fucking clue that in 2 years, that interest that they got their loan at 2.5 was then going to triple and quadruple, meaning they weren't going to be able to pay their mortgages because they simply had no money. So what happens? All of those loans default. So then what happens? The banks start crashing because there's no fucking money.
And then the
who's paying
government has
who?
to bail it out.
And the government has to bail it out. So what she's saying earlier and kind of describing what's going on, that's essentially what's going to happen. This is going to affect everyone. Everyone. We're not just talking about actors and writers, because the content that's not put out there, that stops people from going to the movies. That stops people who work at the movies from going to work. That stops people who maybe work for these actors and actresses. That stops everything. Every little bitty baby thing that you can think of, it is going to affect.
It just trickles down.
And trickles down.
It is a total trickle down effect.
You know, you brought up something before we started recording, JJ, where it's, you know, even something as kind of drilled down as out of work, not only actors and writers, but other industry professionals, because the millions of people who work in entertainment are, even though they're not on strike, they're not working.
Nope.
So, you know, childcare for people who are no longer in work, well, those childcare professionals no longer are needed. Dog walkers, housekeepers.
I mean, there are a myriad of
Anything.
examples, and we're just kind of giving you, you know,
Just touching on.
Yeah, exactly. Things
Things
that
you
are
would not think of, or I would not think of, just
top of mind.
Yeah.
I think if I read correctly, when the WJ striked in 2007, 2008, it was estimated that Los Angeles, on its own, independently from everybody else, had a loss of between 1.5 and $2 billion over
in
100
the economy.
days.
Yeah,
wow.
that tracks.
And I think
I was just saying they're projecting that this strike is going to go on well until 2024.
I think it's going to
It
go
is.
into the first quarter,
Yeah,
which
it's going
is
to go into
January
next year through
what-
March.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just to kind of simply be able to juxtapose it, when you're watching cable and every time the commercial comes on that you're forced to watch, because Hulu and whatever you're watching doesn't let you fast forward. Okay, that's making the money for the networks because they project what they think the viewership is going to be for a certain specific show. And the ad sales are based upon that, right? That always is generating money. When you watch reruns on a random, you know, TNT, TBS, Big Bang Theory, every time you see that commercial, that's making money. The problem is that when you subscribe to something like a Peacock, we'll use that as an example, $8.99, I think gets you everything with no ads.
Yeah.
Think about how many shows you can watch for $8.99 just in one day without any ad sales.
Yeah.
That $8.99 that I'm contributing to watch, I don't know, 60 hours of television in a week does not make up for the ad sales. And that is the fucking problem.
Exactly. The old model, which worked incredibly well,
If it ain't
was
broke, don't fix it.
advertisers pay money up front at what they call the upfronts, which typically happen in early May.
Will you explain that a little bit? Just because it's widely discussed, I think, from just like content creators, Instagram, people say upfronts, but just to give an actual explanation.
Totally. So I think when most of us hear about the upfronts, it's like we get these photo ops of our favorite stars on the red carpet for every network, Ariana at the upfronts, all of this. What the upfronts actually are is essentially a presentation of what each network's upcoming slate of shows are for their advertisers, for the advertisers to get excited to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into the next year of programming on a specific network or network group. And there's a lot of schmoozing. There's, you know, there are dinners, there are parties. You bring the stars out to schmooze with the advertisers, get them feeling good. I mean, these are guys from like Procter & Gamble who are based out of like Ohio or something, who are coming to New York City and having the time of their lives and getting dressed to the nines and mingling elbow to elbow with their favorite stars.
Which is why Ariana was the one to introduce and make, she was the grande dame of the upfronts because Scandival was just roaring.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, unfortunately, Bravo lost money on Scandival. I know that the perception is that they made bukus of money.
They didn't.
Those ad sales were bought at the last upfronts for the season that we got, not that episode. So they didn't necessarily make the money that I think the perception is that they made.
No, in fact, they over-delivered to their advertisers.
Yeah,
their
big
advertisers let's say their advertisers thought that they were going to get 800,000 eyeballs. Well, you got 2 million instead. So they undersold. And they definitely, it's not that they lost money on it, but they didn't make the money that they would have obviously hoped to. That will probably be adjusted and reflected for season 11. Like the Vanderpump ad sales will be slightly, not incredibly, but slightly higher than they were for season 10.
Yeah.
No one's banking on them bringing in 2 million an episode for
Yeah, it'll have the reverse
11,
effect.
but maybe they'll sell it at 1.1.
And when I say losing money, what I really mean that is more proverbially, but everyone was up for a new contract this season. So everyone asked for more money.
Oh, yeah.
So when everyone's asking for more money in their contracts, like it's not necessarily money that they have because the return on their investment was essentially kind of like a wash.
Yeah.
Is the way that I look at it. They didn't get more than what they bargained for.
At the beginning.
Exactly.
Right.
So they don't necessarily have that money or that pool of cash to pull from to essentially adhere to the asks of the cast, which is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the OGs on the cast who are up for renegotiation, I have to imagine they played hardball and probably got significant episodic fee increases.
What do you think? 47.5?
What?
11. I mean, we're only talking about Sandoval and Katie and Sheena. Between 40 and 45. 45, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I
45,
would guess.
47.5, yeah.
Okay, can you say
It's a
that in
lot
a
of money.
sentence?
Hot
say,
dog.
Say that in a full sentence for the
For
people at home like me.
Episodic fees
45.
making somewhere around $45,000 an episode. Probably because they were the ones.
What were they making maybe last season 10?
I don't know,
37.5.
Okay.
maybe?
All right, okay.
37.5, 39,
I would
somewhere
say,
around there.
yeah, not
Okay.
above 40 though.
No, probably not above 40.
I say probably, yeah. I mean,
But yeah, I mean, they're making significant salary increases from year over year, which they should because, look, they put their lives on the line, all of these things, they sacrificed, they were exploited, and
And it's a leverage.
from that. And there is a leverage,
There's leverage.
when
You
the
know?
contract is up for renegotiation, which is every 5 years
and they should be asking for more
for
money.
cast members. Yeah, and they should be.
And not to get too much off on a tangent, but that's just kind of like a simple example of, thinking that all of this money is coming in, there's
Right.
all of these opportunities, which it's designed to look that way, but it doesn't necessarily reflect.
Not necessarily the business model.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the upfronts being what everyone assumes them to be versus what they actually are, how that plays into what the old model was. I mean, essentially, any ad-supported cable network, and that is broadcast, you're talking NBC, ABC, Fox, CBS, or cable, any of the other channels, on linear television, so watching it on TV with ads, they are funded by the advertisers. An entire network's operating budget, that is the cost to produce content shows, staff salaries, everything top to bottom is actually paid for by the operating budget, which is the advertisers buy into the following year. And it was a model that worked. As you mentioned before, JJ, when shows would hit a certain episode threshold and then get sold off into syndication to a different network.
Mad money.
That
Yeah.
is, other networks are paying a high price for syndicated content.
Like Friends.
For Friends, Big Bang
Seinfeld,
Theory,
Big Bang Theory,
Seinfeld, Law and
yeah.
Order, all of these things. And they're supporting and footing that bill for the acquisition based on the fact that they're going to air those programs with ads that pay them. Well, with the streaming model, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And not only does it not exist in terms of we as viewers going on to watch reruns of our favorite shows on a streamer not having ads, but additionally, when these companies are pipelining their content into their own streaming services, so NBC into Peacock, Disney into Disney Plus, or ABC into Disney Plus, they're also not benefiting from the sale of that license to a separate entity. Where people made money
so
in
weird to me.
residuals.
It's so
I know.
weird.
Like, who did that deal?
It's very layered.
I don't understand.
It's
You don't
really-
understand because it doesn't make sense because it's really fucking dumb.
It was a massive bamboozlement. It's like this stupid idea tricked even some of the smartest of people.
It's so silly.
In trying to have this rat race for technology, for streaming and technology.
Yeah.
This was a tried and true model. How actors and writers and producers made residuals in the past. Well, you sell your show into syndication or you sell it internationally, and then everybody wins. And in an old collective bargaining agreement, it had been, I think it was from 1988, that 2% residual was kind of set. Well, if you sell your show into syndication for $100 million, it's really easy to say 2% is $2 million. Well, $2 million goes to the writers or the actors, whoever.
Yeah.
That's an easy equation to solve. With streaming, it's twofold. One is these content distributors, like the networks and the studios, are not making the money back on these syndication deals because they're not selling it to other entities. They're pipelining it into their own streamer and their own app. But additionally, in order for, and this is a big sticking point of the strike, in order for them to pay out residuals to the actors or the writers in a way that they're asking for, which is, I want 2% of what you're making from this streaming revenue, well, that would mean they'd have to open their books and tell them how much they're making from their streaming revenue. And herein lies, I think, one of the biggest problems in what we're facing, which is something that, sure, scripted features, scripted TV are filming, but we're feeling on the reality side as well.
Oh, God, guys, it's so dreadful.
It is, which is that all of these companies are so heavily inflated that a big part of the reason why they are not disclosing their actual numbers, I mean, it's they hide it under the guise of the software tracking being proprietary to each individual streamer. But the reality is they don't want to give a peek into their books because if they did, Wall Street would have a collective stroke.
It's a jump scare.
It's a jump scare. Because their numbers are inflated with the stock prices. But if they show that their subscriber numbers and their profits from subscriptions, which is their profit model, is not making up for the huge expenditures they had to build their content libraries, create and produce flashy original content, and market the thing, not to mention the infrastructure and personnel and all of that, you'd realize that they are deeply in the hole. These companies are billions of dollars into debt, and the second that they open the books, Wall Street's going to see it. And Wall Street's no longer interested in the old days of it just looking like high stock prices and inflated shareholder stakes. They want to know profits, and the profits aren't there. So the second they open it up, it's going to be D-Day because they're all struggling and the stock prices are going to plummet. And at the end of the day, all of our content creation companies, all of these conglomerates, all they care about is shareholder prices. All they care about is the stock price. And they're operating accordingly in an area where they have absolutely no experience. And every historical model of kind of these tech-based solutions for systems that already worked, Uber and Lyft, WeWork, fucking Theranos.
Oh, Lord.
They were all either fraudulent or made false promises. And that is exactly what the entertainment industry is facing. And it's a shame because the old system absolutely worked. I went on a little bit of a soapbox.
That was a jump scare.
Really.
No.
The consumer does not want to go backwards. That's the problem. We don't want to go back to ads, so it's going to be super fucked.
Exactly. There's no rolling it back.
Yeah, they've already massaged us. They've liquored us up. You know what I mean? They did a little foreplay.
Yeah.
And we like that.
Yeah.
And we're not going to want to go back. So, for instance...
And we don't want to pay more for it to continue.
Exactly.
Right.
So, for instance, with SAG-AFTRA asking for 2%, they want 2% of the revenue that each show generates on each streaming platform. So here's wherein lies the problem. And executive producer said this earlier, but just to kind of, for our listeners out there who, you know, maybe need a little bit more of a layman explanation. Sure. I hope you don't mind, executive producer.
Not at all. I get into nerdy network speak.
No, I love it. I think it is so fascinating. I really, really do. I love that you worked at the network.
It's like the MCU. The MCU, but for reality TV.
I mean, executive producer started her career in reality television at Bravo. I started mine on The Bachelor, okay? Sean Lowe season, all right?
I started mine on the couch. And here we are.
And touche. Betsy's the winner.
So SAG-AFTRA is asking for 2% of the revenue that each show generates from a streaming platform to be paid to performers. This is wherein lies the problem. So what the streamers are saying is they have no real way of testing the success of their shows, and not just testing the success, but understanding how that equates to who's subscribing and who's actually watching what. So because of that, there's no real way of being able to allocate any, quote, revenue from what they're receiving in subscriptions in a pie chart to a specific show.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, with cable and ad sales, the difference is we have Nielsen. Nielsen ratings allow us to see who's watching what. Those numbers are then used at what executive producer then described earlier as the upfronts.
Correct.
We don't have any of that. So we can see that on Netflix, a show's in the top 10, but what the fuck does that actually fucking mean?
Yeah.
And juxtapose that and how that equates to who's subscribing, who's watching what, who's sharing their subscriptions with people, who has this account, who has this profile. There's no way to actually tell who's watching what. I can understand that, I think, to a certain degree, but the fact of the matter is you're not telling us how many people are watching, period.
Well,
We're not understand, you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, it's so crazy. I remember, and this was years ago, but I remember a friend went out for an interview for a job with Netflix, and they had to sign an NDA for the interview because
ding, ding.
it was in programming and that had to do with numbers. So they literally had them sign an NDA to not discuss anything about the numbers tracking. And to dovetail off of what you said as well, JJ, is they have no way of tracking it because they also can't accurately predict or allocate what my $8.99 a month is equating to in terms of what I'm wanting to view with that $8.99. I'm sure that they can say, okay, EP, your account, you have watched X number of hours of this show and this show and this show and this show. But let's say, and Betsy, you and I were using this analogy earlier, like, let's say I signed up for Netflix to watch Stranger Things. That was the reason. I wanted to check out the show, and I bought the subscription for that. And in the interim, while I was, just fucking around, I also happened to watch, like, Is It Cake or Lincoln Lawyer? But the real reason that I signed up was for Stranger Things.
What a spectrum.
I know, right? I was
impressed.
trying to cast a wide net.
I'm impressed by that demo.
Well, Nev Campbell.
Nev Campbell, always and forever.
I didn't watch Lincoln Lawyer.
Well,
The first season was a good
the
show.
next 5 episodes will be out next month.
I have to
I
watch
watched the
second
Matthew
season.
McConaughey version.
Well, that's the movie.
No, I know. No.
I like the dude in the new one. But Netflix, in theory, what they're saying is they don't have a way to say, EP, you're $8.99. Well, you only really wanted that to go towards Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So the residuals that we're going to pay really are based on Stranger Things, not on the other two things that you happen to watch because they were convenient. Now, that's a drilled down and kind of reductive way to put it, but it's kind of, I think, what they're saying or what their
Essentially.
argument is. Where their argument fails is when the executives are taking home, 10 figures at the end of the year, and you have actors who are getting residual checks for less than $1 for their multiple seasons of shows that they've had.
starring
on.
role.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, and I think this was a listener question as well, but just to clarify what residuals actually are.
Yes.
Okay, so a residual is money that writers, actors, producers, different kind of back-end creatives involved in making the projects, that they earn when a work is reused. So not initial airings, not initial theatrical runs, etc., but when a movie lands on a streaming platform, is released to DVD, airs on cable, that sort of thing. So, like, for example, if Margot Robbie gets a $12.5 million salary for Barbie, she'll make even more when the movie hits network television and streaming services. So residuals are royalties in a sense. But the key difference is that residuals are union mandated and negotiated with these union contracts, whereas royalties can be a separate agreement between the production company and those they employ. So, Tom Cruise could star in the last Mission Impossible and negotiate 1.5% of all box office revenues on the back end as a royalty.
Yeah.
But the residuals that he gets will be based on the union, whereas the royalty is something that he's negotiated with the studio or the production company themselves.
But is residuals like set? So, like, let's use the Margot Robbie, for example. So, not talking about royalties, residuals. So, let's say she gets 2%. Does that mean Ryan gets 2%, or can it vary between the actors even on the same movie?
No. So for residuals, it is standardized.
It is set.
It's standardized by the union.
Okay.
So 2% regardless.
Okay.
If you are a main player actor or
There
a
are
main
different
writer.
tiers.
And there are different tiers.
Okay.
Right. If you're a background actor, if you're a guest, it's
Got it.
not all 2%, like JJ said.
I don't know if you guys remember, but I think it was either last year or it's been in the last couple of years. If y'all saw the headline of Scarlett Johansson wanting to sue Disney.
Yep.
Because what happened was when she did Black Widow and she signed her contract, she was with the understanding that she was going to be getting a certain profit from X, Y, and Z. What she didn't know was that they were going to be streaming Black Widow on Disney Plus, which wasn't carved out in her contract with subscription and how much money she was going to get on the back end for playing that movie on Disney Plus.
Correct.
She lost. I
Wow.
think, if I'm not mistaken.
She did lose, I think. And it was, it was meant to be a full blown theatrical release. No one could have accounted for COVID.
Exactly. Oh, sorry. I did forget about that one part. So that's what happened. COVID happened.
They did release it in limited theaters where there was the capability to do so, but they premiered it on Disney Plus, which drove huge subscription numbers for Disney Plus. But
That's fucked.
But these streamers were not a part of the last collective bargaining agreement and contract between SAG and the AMPTP.
Now, it was in her contract to receive residuals for every dollar it made out in theatrical release, which is the problem. So she made absolutely no money.
Right.
And she got fucked.
Yeah. And she did not make money from Disney Plus, where
Yeah, I contributed to that because I did not see that in the
And I
theater.
said that hyperbolically. Obviously, she made some money, but not to what.
she
Yeah,
was
but how
supposed to.
disappointing.
Yeah.
Correct. And then they just say,
God.
"Sorry, Scarlett, we're just going to release it on Disney Plus."
And that's a big thing that they're looking to negotiate for this contract is how do you capitalize on streaming revenues? Because, Bob Iger was still taking home $50 million.
I mean, and I quote, Disney CEO Bob Iger says, "The writers and the actors going on strike in Hollywood are not being, quote, realistic with their expectations. Quote, it's very disturbing to me," end quote. Hollywood writers on average are paid $69,510 a year. Bob Iger gets paid $74,175 a day.
And there it is.
So where's the money? They say they don't have any. And I just wanted to make this other point because, again, I think, EP, you and I talked about it a couple of days ago. The streamers are putting in so much money. They create these budgets for these major shows, these major movies. I'm seeing $100 million here, $80 million there. If they're able to allocate and understand from a financial standpoint what they're going to need for a show, shouldn't they be able to understand what their ROIs are and how that should be allocated to the people who are working on the shows who are asking for a 2% residual? How do you know how much money a brand new show that you're not sure is going to be successful or not is going to need? That's a risk, right?
Yes. But the problem is they've been driving up these production prices to entice bigger name actors, bigger name writers, bigger name directors, to then parlay that into enticing subscribers. So it's all fake numbers. You can have $100 million budget for a show, but the end game for that is to, first of all, I don't think anyone's spending $100 million right now without a big name attached. And the idea is to drive people to want to watch that show, subscribe to the service in order to do so. But no amount of $8.99 subscribers are making up for the production budgets that they're hemorrhaging.
They will never satisfy the money made on ad sales. It'll never happen.
It's a broken system. We had a working system. It worked. Was everyone paid fairly? Always? No. Was everything perfect? Absolutely not. But it's a hell of a lot better than the unknown abyss that we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you right now, I have almost all the subscriptions. I pay for nothing because I'm part of my sister's service, and there's like 8 of us on there. So, I mean, this is the majority.
Right.
I know so many people that are like, oh, that's my brother's, but I pay for Amazon Prime. My brother pays for Hulu. My sister-in-law's sister-in-law pays for Netflix. I'm like, okay, great. Let's just combine them all because if I pay for one, then we can all be together because we can just trade off.
Right.
Yeah. It's just wild. Guys, the reason why in the last year and a half, you've slowly recognized that you can no longer take screen grabs of licensed material from Warner, Hulu, Amazon, wherever you're watching your shows, it's because of this fucking problem right here. It is so easy to take a screen grab with audio and the visual and put it up for anybody to see.
Mm-hmm.
They're losing so much money. So now they've aggregated within the coding of what you're watching a firewall for you not to be able to take a screen grab of it.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
Did you?
Yeah, with Peacock. I was like, God damn it.
God damn it.
I had to go
it's
to
really-
YouTube.
Yeah, it's affecting everyone. I mean, in the smallest form, it's completely upending our entire industry. And then you've got writers who are writing for these shows that give us, yes, we have the actors, but the writers are so integral into what we are seeing. Without them, we have nothing. We've got absolute zilch nothing. But then you've got AI.
Yeah, they want AI to come in.
Exactly, which is a whole other problem. And with AI, it's not that AI just kind of was born out of nothing. The only reason why AI has the library of information to use to, spit out an answer to anything that you're asking is because of all the people who came before them to give them that intellectual property.
Right.
So AI doesn't exist without us. That's the problem. Because then we're using people's likenesses. And then in the actor SAG part, we've got people who, they're wanting AI to just kind of like be, I think they're going to probably negotiate on that.
Yeah.
But the problem with AI is that it can use literally anybody's likeness. You've seen it. You've seen
Carrie
all
Fisher in the last Star Wars.
Holograms.
so scary.
The apps that everyone was like in a frenzy over. The reason why people, if you heard, were telling you not to use them is because it's essentially sucking your likeness into the ether.
Yeah. It sounds like a scary sci-fi
It's called iRobot. Have you
novel
not seen
because
that?
it basically is one.
Bicentennial Man.
Yeah.
Okay?
God,
And-
I walked out of both of those. I don't do the robot shit.
There
It's
we
scary.
go.
It's Black Mirror,
Yeah.
guys.
It
Yeah, that one episode I
literally
watched.
is.
That was the one episode I watched was
AI.
yeah.
And, the way that this parlays into kind of the jobs in and of themselves, besides the fact that AI can replace a lot of laborers in our
Jobs.
industry
Oh
and
my God,
jobs,
so many.
is a scenario like this, based on scripts previously written, AI writes a screenplay, and then the company hires a low rate, less experienced writer to come in and just tweak it.
To make it probably sound more
To make it-
human.
Yeah, or whatever, right?
I know.
So,
I'm just kidding.
but like,
Yeah.
so okay, the multiple writers who would have gone into writing, tweaking, rewriting, et cetera, that script. Well, now it's just AI and one mid to low level who you have to pay pennies on the dollar because you're not paying for a full blown A-list writer anymore.
It's like a ghost
Because-
writer.
Exactly. It's essentially that.
Yep.
It's AI writing
It's Aviva
everything.
/ Carol. Season 8 of Roni. Or whatever
Ready,
season
girl.
was. Yeah.
Ready, girl.
Ready, girl. Use your words, writer,
Right,
girl.
girl.
I mean, speaking of writers, I saw that there was a staff writer for The Bear. Now, I can't say they were like a lead or a head writer. Those writers, I want to say for the most part, are compensated well. Now, are they compensated for inflation? Not necessarily. But when you have your lower tiered writers who this is their bread and butter, this is all they're doing. They're not writing for multiple shows. If they are, it's when, they're not in season for the other show, if that makes sense. They're not, what I'm
Right.
saying is they're not taking like 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 jobs writing. They're dedicated to a show. One of their writers recently was on CNN talking about how there's this perception out there because he's a writer for The Bear, which did really well. I want to say it was last summer, either July or June. And I think we talked about it maybe in our last episode, where The Bear was the most streamed
big show.
scripted show on all platforms. And he's living below the poverty line as it equates to Los Angeles, okay? Or wherever he may live, either
Right.
Los Angeles or New York, and I'm pretty sure they're based out of Los Angeles. That is pathetic.
Yeah.
This is a show that is going to sweep the Emmys. This is a show that everyone cannot stop talking about. We're talking about it's on socials, it's TikTok, it's this, it's that. You cannot get away from The Bear.
No, you have actors like Jamie Lee Curtis and clamoring to
Sarah
be on
Paulson
Sarah Paulson to
begging.
be on an episode of season 2 because they're
Bob
huge fans.
Odenkirk. Oh,
Love Sarah Paulson.
chef's
Love.
kiss.
But it's true.
Fucking pathetic.
It's pathetic.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's a mid-level staff writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have someone like Sean Ryan, who created The Shield on FX and The Night Agent on Netflix. The Night Agent, when it's like a spy thriller, it was like a big ticket Netflix, whatever.
Okay.
It became the 5th most watched English language original series in Netflix's history when it premiered. It generated something like 627 million viewing hours because they'll release viewing hours, but it's skewed.
Subjective,
But-
maybe.
Yeah.
And that was in the first 4 weeks. So
It is
I was
skewed because some shows are shorter than others, so you're naturally inherently
Right.
going to watch a show
Right.
longer.
So,
What are
Sean
these
Ryan,
fucking- what are these fucking benchmarks? This is like made up.
But
I feel like I'm living in Toyland.
but it's literally what they
I
give
know.
out for
I
it's
know.
bullshit popcorn. It's not real.
Oh, of course, I know. I just think
Right.
it's so. It's like,
Cockamamie.
did they really think that they were going to pull the wool over our eyes? I mean, we've been talking about this for years.
I know.
It's a fucking problem.
So,
Anyway,
so you have Sean Ryan, who, and this is from an interview he did. He did the calculations. It was 500 million hours, is the equivalent of over 61 million people watching all 10 episodes in 18 days. Those shows that air after the Super Bowl, it's like having 5 or 10 of them. So he went to his lawyer and asked, "So what does that mean?" And as it turns out, not so much. In his case, it meant that he got paid what he got paid. And he'll get a little bonus when season 2 gets picked up and a nominal royalty fee for each additional episode that gets made. But if he's, if anyone thinks he's going out and buying a private jet from this, he's not. And he even went out to say he made less money on The Night Agent than he did on The Shield, which did far less viewership numbers
100%.
and was on FX.
But it had the ads, I guess.
But it had the ads. And, there was this kind of age-old promise in television and in film and in entertainment where if you made the company billions of dollars, you were going to get a lot of millions, right? That promise is gone. If you are supplying them with these massive bonuses for their executives for making $70-something thousand in a day, which is more than most people bring in a year, that you were going to get compensated in some way. Now, and Sean Ryan, very much, just to point this out, much like Mandy Moore when she came out with her royalty check, he's fine. He's not like, I'm not the issue here. But it's an example of what the system has become, and it's to make the point.
And look, it's not lost on anybody that Mandy Moore, I think, is pretty well off and she's comfortable. But regardless of that, she's still owed her fucking money.
That's right.
And this is us. Residual checks are 81 fucking cents. That is fucking pathetic.
And it's because they took it off of Netflix and they put it on fucking Peacock where they're not making any money. Peacock is a massive failure, guys. It is a massive fucking failure that they just don't want to talk about.
Don't let your old bosses hear you say that. I'm kidding. It is a massive failure. It is
conversations we'd be having in that conference room with my old bosses.
It's so bad they cannot joke. They can't adjust the interfacing, which is terrible. So like they cannot put any more money into it.
Yeah.
So we have to just get what we got.
It's horrible.
That's why every time you pause it and you go to play and it starts over again, you're like, what the fuck is this?
Or how about the episodes like descend? I have to start with 12 and go work my way down to 1.
Yeah,
that's fucking
stupid. Not user friendly at all. It's
no, it's
horrific.
not.
No, because they think that we're going to start on season 1 and no one's starting season 1 of Roni. Okay, we're starting with season 3. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah,
Sonia Morgan.
Yeah, Sonia.
Exactly.
It's right.
Enter, baby.
So it's a clusterfuck.
It's a giant clusterfuck out there.
And it's absolutely affecting reality television. And what I mentioned earlier is I think there's this connotation that with the way that the 2007-2008 WGA strike, I think a lot of people felt that because of that strike, it was kind of what was...
The advent.
Yeah, the advent of reality TV, the golden age, rather. But the truth of the matter is reality television was already beating scripted.
Yeah. The big broadcast reality shows were already beating their scripted counterparts.
Like what? Which ones are you talking about?
The year leading up to the writer's strike. So we're talking about probably like May 2007.
Okay.
Whenever American Idol ended that season.
Okay,
the series finale brought in 51 million viewers.
Yeah, I was one of them.
Of course you were. So, we know you were.
Yeah, we know you were with Kelly.
Things like Project Runway, with Christian Siriano winning that season of that year. I think they brought in like something insane. I think around like 5 million.
It was something wild, something that you never see today.
Yeah, which is wild. And we're talking about season 4 of Project Runway.
Right.
In fucking sane. So I think that there's this notion that reality TV, the golden age, where what we know of it now was born really out of the writer's strike. But the reality is it was already upending scripted in a large way.
Yeah.
We then get the golden age of scripted television, all of the best shows, the Mad Men's, the Breaking Bads on paid cable. That was really, to me, what the advent was. It was kind of, it was taking place during the writer's strike, but we really got so much great television after that.
Totally.
And so reality TV really wasn't necessarily born, but what it did was it allowed us to widen our net on what we really receive as entertainment.
Yeah.
And allowing for more shows.
In there not being scripted shows on the air for a period of time, it did lead to, there were that many more networks because cable television was a big thing. And it opened up other networks into the unscripted and reality space. I've also read a lot where people have always attributed like the Kardashians' rise to the writer's strike.
I think it's
Myth
so
busting. Kardashians, it was actually developed, greenlit, and shot in 2006, and it premiered, I think, a month or so before the strike in 2007.
It did. I remember because I watched
so it did. There you
I don't remember Netflix having the ability to be able to stream online, but
you sure should remember.
Of course, I watched that first episode of Kardashians. It was a half-hour comedy.
Literally.
Yeah,
I loved it.
But it did open up the space in that way, and what it also allowed the studios to do was produce more content more cheaply, not under the purview of a union because they were at odds with the union at that point. And that model never really changed. Because the sad fact of the matter is that the rates and the positions from 15 years ago are not all that different from today. Despite inflation, higher cost of living, all of these things.
Sad.
Yeah,
It's
really
is.
pathetic.
And instead, job responsibilities have doubled. Pay has stayed the same or decreased.
They want us to turn over the shows much faster
And we have to turn over the shows much faster.
because they don't want to pay for people to continue to be in post, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say it's probably even more expensive than what we get in the field. Post is very
100%. They run for
expensive.
longer. Yeah.
And just like high level for anyone who doesn't know, can you either one of you like just briefly explain like what a union is and like why you would want to be part of a union?
So
By the way, executive
both
producer
looking at each other.
It's like a Mexican standoff. Who
is going
is
to
going
take it?
to say it first?
Take it away, cowboy.
You got it, JJ.
Cowboy.
Take me away.
So a union, guys, for those who are still awake, a union is, well, they're typically like labor unions. What they're derived from is basically working conditions. If you're looking at the Industrial Revolution, and I won't get too far into that,
God.
but a lot of unions were essentially born out of that because people were not protected. They were working crazy hours. Kids who are 8 years old are working 12 hours a day and they're not going to school. And so unions were these committees, these groups of people that you essentially have to pay in to be a part of the union. And what it does is it represents you and essentially it manages your protections to make sure that you have insurance, to make sure you have these 401ks. And it's essentially to make sure that the man, so to speak, doesn't take advantage of its laborer, of the people who carry the weight of the success of these companies on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And without them, they'd be nothing. So instead of exploiting them and taking advantage, the union's there in place as a checks and balance to make sure that the laborers are being protected in the way that they should be. Essentially, Fran Drescher, she's the president of SAG-AFTRA. SAG-AFTRA would be considered a union.
Yeah.
It is a guild, but that's what it is. So she's the face. She's going to go in front of everybody and say, you greedy fucks, you either pay up or shut up.
That's right.
Okay? Which is what she did. I encourage everyone to go and watch her speech. Very
Yes,
impassioned.
Go watch it on YouTube. We'll link it in the.
We will. We'll
in the
link it.
description.
So unions essentially they run the gamut. They're in all the industries. We've got railroad. I just read recently that the tech company Grindr is about to unionize.
Oh my God,
To
really?
to make sure they were inspired by what's going on with SAG and the WGA. They want to make sure that their workers are taken care of in the tech industry. The tech industry needs a union more than anything.
Yeah.
Reality television also needs a union, but we don't have that.
No, we don't.
But you can work in reality television and still be a part of a union. We'll get more into that in
Yeah.
a little bit, but
Yeah,
that's a union.
that's a union.
And then we get to reality television,
Reality.
which is why we're all here. And that includes you, Betsy.
That's right. Bravo-holic Betsy.
Yes, thank you.
Just real quick, when did you feel like reality TV really encapsulated your life in terms of what you view and what you ingest with television?
I don't know. I will say American Idol was the first, but to me, yes, that's reality, but I view that more like competition and whatever. But I
See,
mean,
guys, even Betsy isolates us. See how she just pushes us to the side? She can't just say, a reality television show. It's competition specific.
right. I mean, it's, I don't do a lot on Fox. I was trying to represent myself that it's really with Kelly Clarkson. But it was always born from the Housewives for me. And I was never a huge Kardashian watcher. I always knew of it. And then I'd seen episodes here and there because I kind of liked E when I was, back in the day. But really, honestly, it was Bravo. And I would probably say, I don't want to say this, but I guess I'm going to say it anyway. I think really the first one that I kind of started watching, and I think it was you had some influence on this, was Beverly Hills. So
Oh, shit.
I'm reluctant in saying that because, I give Beverly Hills such a hard time.
Wow.
But Roni's my favorite. But I honestly think Beverly Hills was one of the, first franchises that I kind of started watching
Regularly.
episode to episode.
Yeah.
And I know it was what, like the fourth in the franchise or something. I mean, I
Yeah.
actually came very late to Bravo, which I would say.
In like 2009 as opposed to 2007.
Yeah. I came a couple of years too late.
Yeah. So did you like Kyle then when you first started watching?
Oh, I don't even know if I remembered her.
That's a
I
plausible
honestly
response.
don't roll your eyes. I'm not trying
Can
to
you just answer honestly?
Honestly, the only person I really remember having an effect on me was Lisa Vanderpump.
VP, baby.
Ooh.
Because one of the,
Good or bad?
I think she was kind of funny. One of the first episodes I remember watching, which I don't know what season it was, but was when she and Ken, they either did a vow renewal or they did it was in the realm of that where they were like, I don't know if they renewed their vows, but they did like a
ceremony.
yeah, at their house where they kind of like re-promised themselves or whatever. And I remember Brandy was there. I want to say that maybe it was season 3 or something.
I think it's season 3.
Yeah.
Where they push him in the pool and they're like, oh my God, his hip! He just had hip surgery! Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I remember.
Yeah, I think it's season 3.
And so I didn't remember Kyle at all. I just remembered Lisa and Brandy, honestly.
Okay, that's fair.
But
That's fair.
I always, I know people like to say like, oh, my guilty pleasure is reality. I never had any shame. And I still don't have any
There was
shame
no
in
guilt.
reality. No, there's no guilt.
I've never had shame. And I had friends who tried to probably inadvertently or like unintentionally shame me
I think that's silly.
15 years ago. And look at me now, producing on reality television.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
And I'm going to tell you, as someone who liked to do a lot of improv and did a lot of improv when I lived out in Los Angeles with JJ, it was the best teaching point, was actually watching reality TV. Because,
Yeah.
I mean,
It is kind of improv in its own right.
it is.
you
Yeah.
know?
yeah. What about you, EP?
Oh.
Is that kind of loaded because you worked at Bravo?
It's hard for me to discern. So I definitely was watching like Housewives shows and Bravo when I started working there, which was in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Before then, though, there were definitely things I was watching. I watched Kardashians, I watched Project Runway, I watched Drag Race. Me and my roommate Mark at the time would get me into all the competition shows and we'd watch them together
When it was on Logo?
when it was on Logo.
Don't know what that is.
Neither does anyone else for that matter. But yeah, I'd say like the big ones were. Oh, it's hard for me to remember. It's probably some of those, and then like American Idol. Like I definitely remember watching the first season of American Idol.
Yeah.
For sure.
2002.
Yeah,
It's really
that was
back
a long
there.
time. I was never a Survivor, Big Brother.
I didn't
Yeah,
do that.
I didn't
Amazing
either.
Race, but not back then. I kind of caught seasons over the years. So yeah, it was probably American Idol, honestly. And then more of the cable side in the couple years leading up to me starting at Bravo. Because at that point I had to watch it for work and it kind of gets muddled in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I want to say The Bachelor.
Fair.
I mean, I was always
Yeah.
a real world girl.
Oh, Real World, for sure.
Yeah.
That, yes.
And their
Duh.
competition shows that they used to
Oh my
do.
God, Road
The
Rules.
challenge.
Yeah, the challenge.
Rules.
There's Road Rules.
And
And
Road
there's
Rules.
Real World,
Road Rules.
Yeah.
Road Rules,
Challenge.
I was a big challenge person, at
So
least
if
for the
I-
first few seasons.
Oh,
Me
so
too.
good.
Yeah.
And they had that
Michelle
RV.
and all of them. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, go back to the 90s.
By the
Yep.
way, Real World. That's
Yeah,
the
but I
one.
mean, I think that's kind of like a given. So I was just using that more thinking out loud. But if I'm really talking about what we know reality TV is today, I would definitely say The Bachelor, The Osbournes,
The Osbournes.
Ooh, I forgot about the
Celebriality in general.
and Project Runway.
yeah. Ooh, those are good.
And American Idol. I watched the first season. Loved it.
She had to bandwagon.
Well,
I was obsessed with Kelly Clarkson.
were you?
I really was.
Same.
Oh,
So good.
And Nancy McKibben.
my first idol. Wait, was she
I
runner?
think that, wasn't she the one with the pink hair?
Oh, Nikki.
Nikki McKibben.
Yeah.
Fuck. Whoops.
Yeah.
Not a true fan. Not a true fan.
Runner up 3 or 4, I think. Well, here's the thing: is that, like, I never. So this will be a really quick story, but I never watched the first season of American Idol when it was airing because it was the first season. It aired, I think, over the summer because I remember Kelly won like in September, but I never watched it, and this was before. Because 2002, this was before you had like DVR and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And my parents kind of casually watched it. And I remember that when the finale came around, my mom, we had this box TV in the kitchen and we had a VCR recording. So she got like a blank VCR tape and put it in and recorded the finale because I guess she wasn't going to be able to watch it real time or whatever. And the next day,
I'm so scared. Like, where's this going?
Oh, it's not going anywhere. I'm just saying that
somebody
like
tape over it?
No. I'm saying I'm kind of a cop out because I didn't actually watch it when it was like episode airing. What happened is I ended up watching the recording of the 2-hour finale, which is where Kelly Clarkson wins, and of course they do a bunch of flashbacks of past episodes where she's singing songs, and I became very, very, very obsessed.
RSPCT.
Yes, and
That was
I
one
knew
of her best.
every
That's right.
every single song that she did from week to week. And this was before YouTube. This was before anything. So I had to wait for like DVDs to be released on like past seasons, and I became into it.
Guys, she still waits for DVDs to be released.
I do. I'm one of the few. But I became very like. That's when I became like hardcore Kelly Clarkson fan. Was like the finale,
That's so funny.
which was still before most. I will say.
I'm just sad you didn't even get to vote.
I know. Honestly, this is the first person I actually voted for, which was via telephone, was actually Carrie.
It's like when people play recordings of lotto numbers and like prank their
That's so
family
fucked.
and
That's
thinking that they
so
won.
fucked.
That is
If we ever really
a
want to prank
prank.
Betsy, this is the one.
That is a
Oh my
prank
God.
that I would be really, really mad.
Yeah.
I would never do that to
Let me
her.
tell
I'm
you,
scared.
the only reason I like pranks is if you tell me it's a prank and I'm excited that it's a prank. I don't want one of these. I saw one of these sad little teenagers and somebody fucking recorded it on Christmas Day. And it was
Stop.
It was one of these. No. It was one of these fake scratch offs, and she must have been 16, 17.
That's bullshit.
And it made it seem like she won $50,000. And the
So
parents,
wrong.
the
So
parents let
upset.
her go on and on for like 3 minutes. Like she started crying, like, wait, is this real? Is this real? And then after about 3.5 minutes of her like hyperventilating, like getting
my
kind of
God.
like realizing like, oh my God, what does this mean? The parents like, read the back. And it's like, if anything over $10, you can't claim it. And it's like, fuck
Fuck
I
you.
would be pissed. By the way, guys, this
tax.
is a notice to y'all. If you ever notice that I disappear from the podcast, that's because either JJ or Eeps did some type of prank with
I would
gambling,
never do that to you.
and I never
Well,
recovered.
I
would
had
never do
grand
that
ideas
to you.
before the end of the story, and I no longer will.
No, you can't do that.
No,
I can't.
I won't do that.
Oh,
I only like-
I'm so sad for you.
I only like pranks when you find out that it's not true and you're like, oh, I'm relieved. Like
Okay.
okay.
pregnancy
okay.
scares. It was fake. Okay, thank God.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't want to
do.
pretend
I
I'm a
won't-
millionaire and then you take it away from me.
I would
No, that's
never
not
do
right.
that to you.
That's
That is
not right.
cruel.
I know you
That is
wouldn't.
fucking cruel.
Anyway,
But,
reality.
Going back to you guys, reality bites. Jesus, but I'm bumped. It's my dad joke for the day.
Yeah.
Reality TV. I mean, again, it's why we're all here. And just listening to us talk about anecdotally, like what in effect it's had on us. Now, it didn't take us away from scripted. We still watch that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the three of us still watch that. Betsy waits for her DVDs to come in, and executive
box
producer and I,
sets.
we stream exactly the box sets, and we wait for to come out on the streamers, which you know is always like a month or two ahead of Betsy's shipment of DVDs.
Yeah, don't count on my subscription. They can't count on it.
No, I will not. Anyway, but all that to say, kind of dovetailing into the fact that like reality TV, we're under the umbrella of entertainment, all entertainment, music, commercials, features, scripted. And I would be remiss if I did not mention this. Executive producer did start out on independent films before she went to Bravo.
I did.
She, by the way, she just
I
gave me
did.
this look of like, I did? Question
did.
mark?
Well, it was a long time
It was a
ago. She
long
might
Yeah,
have
time
but
forgotten.
I give her a hard time because I say that she kind of was just,
I never PA'd.
yeah, I should never be.
But I like to
You
say I
skipped
did,
the entry level.
but I did PA on features.
Nepotism, guys. Nepo baby. Just want to say that's what she is.
Yeah.
We're under this big umbrella of entertainment. And I think that obviously everybody understands that. But I think that, I mean, I have to say it has been kind of lost on me because I thought that where we're at in 2023, we were in a place where we no longer had to call it guilty pleasures, which I think that we are by and large for the most part, not in that place. However, I thought with my naivete that we had gotten to a place where maybe we were a little bit more respected within the industry. And I will say that we are more respected, but marginally. In
Not by much.
yeah, of course not by much. Especially from when I started in the industry, which I mean, I feel so privileged and grateful to say that I started in the industry literally in the middle of the golden age. All the great shows. I've had vast experience working on some of the coolest shows ever in a way that I don't know if I'm going to be able to see in my career now. But at the same time, through celebrating all of that and thinking that we were a little bit more accepted because there is, I think, I mean, now I'm curious what you guys think, but I feel like I've seen reality stars kind of overlap with other celebrity.
Celebrity.
I mean, we see reality. I mean, Timothy Chalamet is dating Kylie Jenner.
Exactly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I mean. We've got Jennifer Lawrence talking about, loving Vanderpump.
Yeah.
We're in a place where I thought that we were a little bit more respectful, but what I've come to find out, which is like, I feel sounds so silly saying this, we're just not in the same way.
We're not.
Which kind of leads me to the bastardization in general in the industry, which is really disappointing because we're just never allowed a seat at the table.
Yeah. They really don't.
And with that, I think there's this connotation that we're cheaper to produce and all of those things. And that may be true, but the return on investment is high, which means that we are contributing a hell of a lot more than I think people realize. Yes, we're cheaper to produce, but we're not that cheap. I want to say the cheapest show I've probably worked on is a show called Homemade Simple for the Oprah Winfrey Network, and it's on Sundays. That show was heavily, heavily, heavily funded by Procter & Gamble. We had so many vignettes and integrations and all of these moments within the episodes, because it's a home reno show, where we are featuring a mop or a soap or anything that Procter & Gamble makes. On top of that, we had trade-outs. Anything that we use for furniture, paint, all that stuff we would get for free. So with all of that, from start to finish, the episodes were still $250,000 to make. Okay.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of them. And we're talking about Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. A very, 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 very cheap ad sale spot, which is why Procter & Gamble is using integrations, and they also own all of our ad sales. On the higher end, I'm working on Bachelor. That show is probably going to have, at the time, I think a budget anywhere from $35 to $40 million.
Jesus.
For the series.
For the whole season. That's still a show that is extremely and heavily traded out. At the time, we're talking flights, all the resorts, anything that you see is a trade out. That's still a $40 million show. Then you have a show like Housewives on Bravo, Southern Charm, Vanderpump. It is going to differ, regionally, depending on just how much things cost, overhead, et cetera, et cetera.
What season you're in.
All of those things, crew, cast, how much they're paying out for that. All of that is going to be variable in your overall budget. But just to kind of spitball here, we're talking from start to finish, a Housewives episode could be $750,000 to $850,000. Collectively for a season, we're looking at anywhere from 12 to 15 million. That's still not a nothing budget, but we're also returning so much. And I think that because we're by and large bastardized and, we are cheaper to produce. So in a lot of ways, we're still essentially kind of shunned as the bargain brand of the entertainment industry, lacking intellect and dismissed as mindless entertainment, when in reality, we are a titan of the microcosm of visual entertainment. I mean, I don't think there's any way to not recognize it as such, but the truth is, because we are just kind of seen as trash, I don't think in a lot of ways, viewers and by and large, just everybody, I mean, the people really understand our contribution.
Yeah.
And we are not protected. We still battle very long work hours. We are at the behest of production companies who get to pick and choose what we get paid. The scale of pay is all over the place. And in a lot of ways, the only reason why I get paid more is only because I've been promoted.
Right.
The rate that I used to make in my other positions is still the same rate
that people
as
make
it was
in those
10 years
positions.
ago. Yeah.
That's crazy.
We don't have a guild. We don't have a union. We don't have benefits. There's no one there to assist with protecting us with labor laws.
Yeah. And it's just so true. I mean, I look at the rates for different positions on even just the producing staff, and they are the exact same rates that I made in those positions when I was coming up in my career. They're the same rates as 10 years ago, and none of them have accounted for inflation and higher cost of living. And so I was reading this article that Alex Laughlin wrote for Defector, and they just had this little quote, which was kind of perfect, where it says that, the situation that we're in presumes that the workers who create the unscripted programs don't deserve the same labor protections as those who work on scripted ones, because those shows require less talent to produce. Reality TV is the product of expert storytellers, strategic producers, and cast members who are uniquely talented at conveying their personalities on screen. I'm looking at you, fucking Bethany Frankel.
That is just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. It's like, yes, cast members and talent have Beth. Macbeth.
Honestly,
Macbeth.
Lady Macbeth.
Lady
Macbethany. Oh my God. Hey.
Hey, heard it here.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here first. So if I see it out there on social media, I'm going to know you got here.
Yeah, that's us.
Hannah. Sellinger.
For free.
But I mean, this is the truth of the matter, right? It's like in our side of the industry, we have been kind of predisposed to have these harsher work conditions. There is no regulation as to, I mean, sure there is to a certain extent, but there really isn't as to how many hours are worked, the pay that you receive, how that kind of equates to a livable wage. There was some poll done in 2020 of like unscripted or reality workers. Over 80% did not have health insurance.
That tracks.
That tracks. I mean, to me, that's not surprising.
No, not
but
at all.
when you think about it in terms of larger, like other industries at large, and say unionized sectors of our industry, actors who belong to SAG can't say that. Writers who belong to WGA can't say that necessarily.
As long as you're meeting your benchmark every year for remaining in SAG.
Right. Absolutely. And there are benchmarks for all of these unions. There are also buy-ins for these unions where you have to pony up a good amount of money up front in order to access these benefits. And that money, it's a lot up front, but it is what's going into lowering your health insurance costs and contributing to a 401k or an IRA and all of these things.
And depending what union you want to join, there's a certain amount of hours you have to accrue to be able to join.
In order to be eligible, right.
Which it's not like 20, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I mean, whereas, yes, at one point in time, we may have been a utility player to plug in the holes where, yes, reality TV was not in the conception of it was not during the last writer strike, but it's the expansion of it sure was.
Yeah.
And we, a network can produce 4 to 5 reality shows for the cost of one scripted. But what we have turned into is as you were saying, JJ, like our reality stars, quote unquote, they're as much a part of the pop culture conversation and the zeitgeist as any celebrity, quote unquote. Like they are celebrities.
Yes, they are.
And they don't get there on their own. This is not what we do. And I don't think anyone listening here will be surprised by this revelation, but we don't just pick up a camera and follow people around 24 hours a day. Like while these are real lives, while these are, real stories that we are tracking, it's producers both in the field and in post who are strategizing and spearheading crafting story arcs based on what's going on in people's lives. It's using their authentic kind of experiences as the talent to craft a compelling story for the viewer. And no, we're not writing scripts and putting words in their mouths. We're not, by and large. Yeah. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into making anything that you watch on television. There was I don't even remember what article it was in, and I feel like we both read this, JJ, because I think we shared it with each other and both said this, which is that like anything that looks really easy to put on television, you can bet your ass was really fucking hard to get done.
That's absolutely true.
There's an inherent kind of assumption that we are,
I would look at it as like a principal dancer. They look effortless. They look like they're floating.
Yes.
There's a lot of fucking work that goes on behind that. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I'm comparing us to the American Ballet Theater.
Speak for yourself.
Dancer.
Okay. Well, that just reminds me though, like we talked about this on many episodes ago where you were saying one of the hardest, or maybe not hardest, but most annoying things to shoot is like arrival scenes. Right.
Yeah.
And they often,
I don't know why, but they are.
They often live on the show as like a nothing moment. Like that's a moment where I'm like, oh, let me go make my sandwich and like make sure I'm not missing anything. Right. But for y'all behind the scenes, it's one of the more things that you kind of have to, have.
I have to dedicate a significant amount of time of my
choreograph
schedule
it, basically.
Yeah.
For the scene. Yeah.
Exactly.
Probably like 30 minutes. which is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
I mean, that's just like a small example of, even though it might not translate to the screen as some big moment, cinematic, but it also took
takes
a lot.
time.
Yeah.
Our DPs, they
have
have
to
to light
dedicate.
really well. Now, there is, and I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, but there are people who work in our industry who are working in reality TV on shows that are not unionized, but they may be a part of the union. Depending on what union you're in and what the rules are, you're allowed to do that. So you're allowed to be in a union, but also work in reality TV. That doesn't go for everyone, but you can. So
Right.
there is an opportunity there. And I have a ton of friends who, specifically, they're camera operators, and they're in I think it's the 606. Don't hold me to that, but they're in the union for ops and DPs.
Right.
And they work on union shows and they work on Bravo shows,
Right.
which aren't necessarily unionized.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's an important kind of thing to bring up too, is that not all reality shows are non-union. Most are, but there are shows that are unionized within reality television, and there are select few companies, production companies, that are unionized within what we do.
Yes.
But they're not the vast majority. And you can speak more to this, JJ, because admittedly, I've never worked on a union show. I know that
Worked
you
on
have.
many.
So
Jack of all trades.
you've also been on shows where they flipped from non-union to union.
Yes.
Which is, a phenomenon that essentially, if we ever as reality creators or just, in the reality sector of the industry want to become unionized, it's going to take a monumental effort to flip. And we can talk more about that. But could you kind of fill me, Betsy, and the listeners in on what, distinguishes a union show from a non-union show and what it takes to flip one? Because I think that's a big thing too. It's like we're talking about wanting to be a part of a union or wanting to have protections, but it is a little bit more, in the weeds and complicated than that.
So depending on the union and depending on the show and how they work out their schedules, it really kind of differentiates with certain little like protocols and rules. Like for instance, Grip and Electric on a union show, they're going to have 2 designated breaks each day for 15 minutes plus their 30-minute lunch. Their turnover may be longer. Maybe, from a labor standard, your turnover has to be 8 hours, meaning there has to be 8 hours in between when you clocked out and when you clock in, which is criminal.
Right.
So, for instance, G&E, their rules may be their turnover has to be 10 hours.
Right.
And that's just what it is.
And it's minimum.
Exactly, minimum. Whereas maybe on a non-union show, we can get away with 8. We would never do that. We would never do that. And we would normally, if we have to, and it's really dire fucking straits, we'll always ask our crew, at least the shows that I work on and I produce, because I give a shit about the crew, because I kind of came up in crew, I came up in production first. We will ask them if they're okay with that. And it's usually in an environment where it's not, like, we're not strong arming them, like, are you okay with this? Wink, you better say yes. It's not like that.
No.
We really want to take the lead from them. And one thing I forgot to mention is that even though we're non-union, we're still from, I would say, kind of somebody looking over our shoulder in a way. We're still supposed to adhere to union rules.
Scheduling rules for the most part.
Scheduling rules for the most part, yes. Not necessarily pay rates, but the way that we do turnovers and stuff like that, just because we don't want to flip, because flipping is expensive. But anyway, going back to working on unions, usually it's kind of differentiates with little rules like that. And it just depends on the department.
Right.
In that regard.
Yeah, and I think, every department, in theory, right, could be a part of a different union.
Correct. So we have art department, which is completely separate from Grip and Electric, which is completely separate from camera, which is completely separate from
Sound.
Which is completely separate from even, there are certain groupings, and again, I won't go too far into this, but there are even production type of committees and guilds and a union, so to speak. It's not necessarily called a union, but it offers the same type of protection. Those you see more in features than anything else.
And I think what makes it so hard to kind of think about flipping our industry to union, or our side of the industry to union as a whole, is that, these structures and the systems already put in place for scripted, where different departments are part of different unions, where as for us, it's not like It's not like in reality TV, we can say we want to get one union for all workers in reality TV that will represent all of us and give us the job and workplace protections that we really should have.
Yeah.
Because we'd fall into so many different departments.
Correct.
So, you know, when you're talking about these different unions, the 606 and the art department and all of that.
I say 606. Am I getting that right?
It's 60 something. That sounds familiar. But those would all fall under the IATSE, like we talked about earlier, umbrella of kind
The
of
art something?
Yeah, the IATSE, it's more of the like technical workers. It's the trade workers more so.
Okay.
More like Teamsters, if you will. So grip and electric or art department or camera or sound. You know, producers would fall under actually WGA.
Yeah, right. Okay. That makes sense.
That's where we would fall, what union we would fall into. And then talent, well, that's a little bit murkier because SAG-AFTRA, you have to have a certain number of credits in a SAG-AFTRA production in order to get your in order to be eligible for your card and your membership. But reality TV is not a SAG type of production. There's not actors saying lines. No. So it does fall into murkier territory, and there needs to be some sort of standardization or, you know, some sort of inciting incidents that will band us all together to really kind of demand this. Because what sucks about the industry that we're in, not to shit talk the industry that we're in,
I love what we do, guys.
We love what we do, but pay rates haven't gone up in over a decade.
Nope.
Cost of living has skyrocketed, and we are not in a position as an industry and as gig workers. Because also, let's be clear, what the studios are trying to do to the actors and writers with streaming is essentially turn them into us.
Yes.
It's turn them into gig workers, where
which is horrifying.
We get paid what we get paid to go on a show for X number of weeks or months, and then we walk away, and that's it. We don't get anything on the back end. By the way,
no residuals. No royalties,
and
anything.
I'm in a fortunate position, and I know that. Whereas I'm one of the small subsect of the industry because I fall above the line, where I have an agent. I have someone who is as close to fighting for my protections as possible. But even with that, there are things that we ask for every show that I go on, every show that, you know, whether it's a bonus or, you know, a pickup bonus if it gets picked up for an additional season, or things that may equate to or be similar to like back end residuals, although not actual residuals. Without fail, 100 out of 100 times they will say no, and it's a hard and fast no. There's no even negotiating. It's another thing that also we're pay for play, which is that we can be let go without due cause for any reason at any time. And that includes me as an executive producer, you as a supervising producer, an associate producer, a PA. It doesn't matter.
You're at-will employees.
We're at-will employees. We are just gig workers. So the studios are essentially inadvertently with their streaming model trying to create that for the writers and actors. Well, the reality is that it shouldn't be there for any of us. I'm not saying that everyone who works on a production should be getting money on the back end every time it airs.
No.
It's not about that.
No.
The big ticket item for the strike now is residuals, which, I do think that reality stars should get residuals. I also think reality producers should get residuals. But more than that, it's about basic
rights.
You know,
benefits, guys.
Benefits. Pay floors rather that account for cost of living. I mean,
I used to work Fraturdays.
What is that?
Okay.
A frat house?
Please explain a Fraturday, if only.
You had to go join a frat after work.
This is why the union went on strike. The IATSE union went on strike for a little bit last year, was because a lot of it because of scheduling with Fraturdays, which are abysmal and criminal. And please,
I mean, it sounds like it's a combination between Friday and Saturday.
Correct.
If I'm going out on a limb.
Correct.
No beer.
No, nothing.
Okay.
So a Fraturday is when you start your workday on a Friday and you end it on a Saturday. So for instance, and I'm kind of using The Bachelor as an example, I would typically throughout the week, when it's not a rose ceremony night, would have day schedules. So maybe I'd come in from 7 to 7, or technically 7 to 7:30, because we don't get paid for lunch. So
right. Obviously.
So for instance, say I would be scheduled Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 7:30, 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Then on Friday, I'm scheduled to come in at 5:30 p.m. And I'm ending my day on a Saturday.
It's like 6 a.m.
At 6 a.m.
Wow.
So
12 hours.
12 hours, and you're not really getting a true break Or, for instance, what they'll do, and sometimes I hate to say that we have to do this, but like on a cast trip, you'll be there for, say, a week, but usually because it's backing into the finale, you'll have to work your crew from like Tuesday to Saturday, which the beginning of the new week starts on a Sunday, which typically you'll always give your crew off. But sometimes, specific again to The Bachelor, because I worked on Bachelor in Paradise, I thought I was going to get 4 days off my entire 6 weeks that I was there. But what I didn't account for was that my last week was going to back in to my last week of filming. So I never got a day off. I worked Monday through Saturday or Tuesday through Saturday, then picked up my schedule again on Sunday and worked through Thursday.
Jeez.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that.
It's that week. It's like starts on Sunday, ends on Saturday. You can only work 6 days or 5 days, but there's no accounting for backing those two together. So you work 10 days in a row.
Yeah. I mean, when I worked on Hell's Kitchen, again, another union show at the beginning of my career, I was paid, our day rate was $112 for 12 and a half hours.
Jeez.
Yeah.
After taxes, I brought home $94.
And it's just like programmed into you,
Yep.
like into you that that's what you have to do. And
Because that's what you have to do to
shows
survive.
So then I
Yeah.
would get more gigs that were separate from that job. So
Yeah.
then I would have to create my own Friday where I'd get off really late on or really early on Saturday morning. I'd have maybe 3 to 4 hours and I'd have to be at another shoot at say 8 a.m. because I need to make more money. Whereas if we were protected, all we would need to do is accrue my hours to be in a union and not have to work myself to death. Where I can tell you, there have been countless times that I've fallen asleep on the road and almost gotten into a car
Really
accident.
fucking dangerous.
oh, wow.
Yeah, when I would drive home from Calabasas back to Los Feliz.
I remember
Wow.
like when IATSE went on strike last year, there was that Instagram account that was created that got circulated very widely.
I sent stories and they posted.
And
It's horrible.
there were horror stories.
Yeah.
You know, pregnant editors who were strapped, basically, it may as well have been strapped to their bays.
Wearing maxi pads to pee in.
Because they
Depends.
didn't have time for a bathroom break.
I can't
They
tell
didn't
you.
have adequate health insurance to take off maternity leave, so they have to go back to work right away. Driving in completely unsafe conditions because you've been up for 20 hours and working. It's disgusting and it's abysmal, and the companies are able to get away with it because they don't want to fucking pay the money to give us fair work conditions.
No, they don't want to pony up. And there are a lot of similarities, especially with the Writers Guild, because I'm seeing people come out on CNN, Fox News, whatever, talking about what they're dealing with. And a lot of them are saying that when writers will go to negotiate their contracts for shows, they're trying to ask for more money because it's what they deserve. And what they're kind of met with is this attitude of, you should be so lucky to be working on this show. And I cannot tell you how many times I was met with that. You should be so lucky to be working on this. The fact that you're even asking just really shows how ungrateful you are.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and people are
they're desperate.
People are desperate out there. You know, I can't tell you how many stories I've seen or heard where people, workers and people throughout all facets of our industry of reality are talking about how, like, you know, there's been a new law for the last, I think, year or so where the state of California passed it, but it kind of is on most of our job posting sites where they, for the first time ever, have to actually post the rate range for each position, which is also disgusting to see because you're realizing going in that there are some jobs that you just don't even bother applying for because the pay is just too low to survive on.
Yeah.
When I see rock star, what that means to me is a person who stays quiet and just does their
rock
thing.
star producer.
We need
who
a rock star producer.
can wear many hats.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about? That movie? With Brad Pitt?
Oh, sorry, I gave you no context. In the job postings, we need a rock star person that can, you know, wear many hats.
So pipe it.
And by the way,
Yeah.
and just wears a smile on their face and has a good attitude.
Good
AKA,
attitude.
this job is going to be horrifying. We don't want to hear you say anything about it.
Yeah, I'll take the
And
ghost.
you're going to have to just take what you're given.
And so many of these job postings that you see and the descriptions of what the positions entail have grown exponentially over the years.
Yeah.
The amount of responsibility for each position has doubled, yet the pay has not reflected that, nor has any of the other protections or hours. And legally, with healthcare, for example, if we work somewhere for 6 months straight, we're able to be eligible for healthcare through that production company. But none of our very, very few, I'm not going to say none, but very few of our jobs ever last that long. So we're out on the streets and have to start all over again. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've seen talk about how there's a position that's posted, let's say the rate is $2,000 a week. Well, then they try to negotiate to like $2,200. Nothing crazy. Something that is well within the range of what that job position has been, what they've been paid for that position before.
Yeah.
And they can even do it with like a little bit of a wink and a smile. Like nothing egregious, nothing aggressive. And then days go by and they finally get a response from that company saying, oh, we actually went with someone who accepted a lower rate. Because everyone's fucking desperate and needs to make money. So no one is.
And for that very reason is the why we can't
Yes.
band together to unionize.
Have a union.
We can't
Because
afford to be
it's-
trailblazers.
No, it's survival of the fittest. That's literally what it
Yes.
is. It's dog eat dog. And no shame to that attitude because it was designed like that for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. The production companies and the networks are hostile towards the idea of us unionizing. It's just the truth. There was a relatively decent push by the WGA East for the last decade to try to unionize some production companies. And they did unionize a few, but others. Here's the thing. We can't, as just the gig workers say, or the producers, or whatever level we fall into within the reality TV microcosm, just say, oh, we want to be in the union. WGA and the other unions can't also just say to us, oh,
No.
they're in our union now. They have to flip the production companies and the networks. And I don't want to say they'll never do that, but there are two avenues to go through. One is all of us collectively as workers in reality TV, and I'm talking talent, producers, crew, across the board, essentially stage a mass walkout and a self-strike. But, I mean, no one can afford to do that.
Look at our fucking economy. It's like $8 for a gallon of milk.
It's disgusting.
I mean,
God, you always bring up milk.
But we got milk.
shame me. Okay?
Yeah, I will.
But, you know, like,
It's a travesty.
it's a travesty.
So we want the protections and we want to be able to band together, but we can't because there are no protections. Like, for instance, SAG today came out and said that they're going to be assisting their members financially. We have none of that.
We've got none of that. And not for nothing, our industry is not red hot right now. It's been pretty slow for the last 8-9 months. A lot of shows post kind of the initial wave of pandemic when shows got back up into production, companies and networks bought a lot. They produced a lot. There is a little bit of a stockpile of content that they still are yet to roll out. It has slowed down already. And, you know, JJ, I imagine you've seen this as much as I have, and we've talked about it some, but like how many people across our industry, editors, post-producers, producers in the field, crew have been systematically out of work for months and months and months now.
Yeah,
And-
I would say probably since November, which is baked in because all of the industry goes dead and goes dark from
The holidays.
the holidays and then like mid-January and then shows come back up. Everyone's without work.
But we usually would have seen an uptick around January, February, March even. And now it's just not the case. Now, could that bounce back if this writers and actors strike continues for a long period of time, which in all likelihood it will? Because if anyone's holding their breath for the conglomerates to open up their kind of balance sheets and numbers, we're going to be waiting a while.
Pass out.
And if we're waiting for AI regulations, well, we got to wait on the government and nothing happens fast there. So it's possible that we'll see an uptick in our industry. And I do think that there will be more shows that go into production, but it's never going to be with the things that we really need to create a safe and sustainable work environment. And I mean, I remember there was, I can't remember where I read, but someone talking about how there was a show during the pandemic that was supposed to shoot back to back, like a competition series type thing on location. And there were obviously some issues on set, and the local IATSE union was called to come in to check things out, and they wanted to flip it. So instead of it flipping, the production company shut down production, hired a different crew to finish season 1, and finished and did a completely different crew in a different locale for season 2, just to avoid having to pay union fees. Because here's the truth of the
It's
matter.
very expensive.
Production companies,
It's very gross, though.
networks have been slashing production companies' series budgets for reality incrementally over the years. Even though it's rating, we're still slashing budgets.
And you have to also understand that there's a percentage that a production company takes off the top of what's supposed to be allotted for our show to pay for overhead costs for their production company.
Yes, and that typically is like 10 to 15%, although in recent years it's gone more in the 5 to 10 range because they can't actually produce the shows with the slashed budgets the network is approving.
They can't.
The network basically said, oh, in 2008, you could produce this show for this amount of money. You should still be able to. Okay, well, that's not how it works. And these companies, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, these companies, there's incentive not to flip. And without their support in flipping to union, they're never going to. Because if a network commissions production company A and say, we want you to make this show for this amount, but that's a union company, and they say, well, actually, we need like 30% more in the budget, the network then goes to production company B, non-union, and says, I want you to make it for this. And they say, okay.
Yep.
Well, they're going to go with production company B. So production company A has no incentive in the broader marketplace to unionize because they know that they're going to lose out on shows. They know that they're going to lose out on contracts from networks. And
they're going to find the people eventually to do it.
Exactly. They could fire an entire staff of people and then just replace them with young, hungry, desperate workers who will take whatever they can get because there's not much out there and they got to fucking feed themselves.
It's bad. It's really bad. And we're only at the beginning because, again, it trickles down. So, I mean, I just feel like we're not going to be able to fill in those gaps in the way that I think the majority of the people think that we're going to be able to, because they're going to slash our budgets too. And we're going to be asked to make shows for next to nothing in shorter amounts of time. And it's just a problem. And we don't have any protections. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've risked not being hired on another show by a production company again because I've spoken up against like sexual harassment or
penalized for just,
abusive, toxic work environments where I've got bosses screaming at me in public in front of my entire crew, or standing up for the people that I know are actually terrified of never being able to be hired again and saying, this person who is a part of our show is being inappropriate and everyone's uncomfortable. And I'm willing to go out on that limb because I have had the experience before losing opportunities and I don't care. And I'd rather do that than allow toxic.
Well, you'll stand up for what is right.
Yeah, what is right. But I feel like I'm privileged and I'm in a place to do that. Mm-hmm. That company has never hired me again.
Right.
Because I made an embarrassment out of them on a Zoom, calling out the type of things that they were willing to enable at the cost of my crew being very, very uncomfortable, who I know did not have the voice and felt like they could not actually say anything. Essentially, it was led up to me, an underling, to say absolutely fucking not.
Right.
I've never worked for them again.
Because there's a general company culture and a workplace culture where if you stand up for yourself, you are penalized. Mm-hmm. HR is essentially non-existent. And it's a really unsettling kind of world to live in and an industry to be a part of in that way.
And because we're at-will employees, we have no way of actually showing evidentiary support to the things that we're alleging because we've got no one there to help back us up. We don't have lawyer funds. We don't have those things. So we just don't have any protections.
Yeah.
And we're constantly just taking in bullshit.
It's true.
No.
And, and we've talked about this, JJ, so how would we unionize? How would we kind of get ourselves protected and supported by a greater entity that kind of looks out for us individual workers? And the truth is, it's like you look at the strike authorization numbers for SAG and for WGA, you're looking at like 97, 98% of all their members voted to strike. Mm-hmm. I can't even fathom getting 90-something% of reality TV producers only in agreement on anything. We're scattered across the country and the world at times. We don't, LA and New York are production hubs for scripted, but reality is done everywhere.
Yeah.
We're also disconnected from one another. And there are so many different subsectors of reality TV in a very different way than there is in scripted. Like in scripted, you have 1 hour dramas. Sure, you have, procedural Law and Order type ER type things. Then you have like high concept, big swings like Game of Thrones. And then you have like family drama. You have all these different things, but you look at the structure of a show and of any of those shows, and they're all kind of the same. There's the writer's room, there's the script supervisor, there's all these people. But in reality, within the docu space, even you have like take competitions out of it, because as we know, Betsy, those are just competitions. It's not the same. But the way that a show on Bravo, a docu-soap on Bravo is produced versus something on MTV versus, every network, every show, someone with the same title may have 50 different basically job responsibilities.
Oh, yeah.
A supervising producer on one show may be literally what the co-EP is. On another show, it might be the number 3 who's really dealing with logistics or is more of a talent producer. On another show, they could be like a senior field producer who's running a crew in the field.
Sure.
There's no standardization. So I think that also lends to why our scripted counterparts kind of poo-poo us, because they don't really understand us, because we're an amalgamous entity where there's no standardized anything, which has been allowed to run rampant for years. And so now the idea of getting, all of us together to agree, when a lot of us cannot afford to be the trailblazers that we all need, which is to say, we're all not, the only way this changes is if we basically say we are all not going to work. And I don't see a universe where that is a reasonable or a realistic situation.
Well, yeah, because when these groups unionized back in the 40s, 30s,
I think,
the population was really small. They had more of an infrastructure to be able to do that. You also have to understand that even if we were to flip shows, they're not easy to flip, because there are still measures that you have to adhere to. There are certain things that requirements you have to meet to be able to flip. Even if we were able to flip, say, a docu-soap on Bravo, that's only really the crew. That's not anybody else. It has nothing to do with producers. So there are just all of these caveats and a lot of nuance that puts us on the trajectory of where we're at right now, which is, even if we wanted to band together, it is going to be incredibly difficult.
Yes.
Because we are not a one-size-fits-all.
No,
and people
we're
do not understand us, because no one wants to take the time to actually understand what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, question, Betsy, in being friends with me for almost 20 years, you've known me through it all, in just being, each of us being just both viewers and then me working in the reality TV space. What was what was the thing that you felt like you were the most surprised about, in just kind of by proxy observing me going to work and just kind of seeing me work in the industry? Like, was there anything that kind of surprised you and shocked you, going from viewer to?
I don't know. I feel like I always had a pretty good grasp of what reality TV was and the production. Like, I never came from a standpoint that like, oh, this is scripted, this is fake. I never really bought into that. I'm not talking about like The Hills and that kind of shit, but like, I never bought into, how this is fake, this is overly produced. They're telling them to do this. I never really thought that. I just always remember asking you a bunch of stuff, like specifically with like Housewives. I was always really fascinated with like how they did confessionals, and I never knew if it was on the same day or like how they recalled stories. So like, I don't know if there was anything that shocked me or that I was really surprised by, but just like little nuggets of information that I might not know as a viewer, I got like an insider on, because I knew that you knew how everything worked, and like pickup scenes and round robins, like things that I would not have known, you kind of identified.
So being a bystander, did it look like, were you at all surprised that it was more work than what it looks like on TV?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that everybody kind of knows that, but I don't think people really understand the full gravity.
I just think it's easy to shit on. It's easy to shit on, and, and the people that are like, as you said, poo-pooing. Well, because what's going on, they don't know. So just shut it.
I just read an article today where they're talking about our effect on society in a way that it's almost as if the inception of just frivolity out there in the societal landscape was only born and bred out of reality TV. Like,
the cesspool of humanity is because of reality.
Yeah, like
basically.
what we do, say, dating shows, we set expectations that can never be met.
In real life.
In real life.
That's bullshit.
We put out a perception out there that is just a fallacy. Which to say, you know, if we're looking at the entire global scale of reality TV, yes, I think there is some truth to that. But
Can that be said for any sector of entertainment?
Well,
Nicholas Sparks doesn't
you.
set up an unrealistic
Yeah. That's
what I-
expectation for
It's
a
like,
relationship.
what
not kidding.
not to do?
I was thinking like Disney. You know, what we do is we perpetuate people wanting to live a life of, you know, they live beyond their means. Is that us or is that celebrity in general?
And that's celebrity across the board. Not it is.
I mean, it's like we set these expectations in romance. What about all the celebrities who have had PR relationships that we still to this day think of as, oh my God, what happened to them? And then in reality, that bubble burst because we find out that it was a PR relationship all along. Is that not setting a standard?
It is.
What's the difference?
But
Yeah.
we're able to be scapegoated and pigeonholed into being the reason for these misconceptions in society when those misconceptions have been around as long as storytelling itself.
Everybody likes to have
Yeah.
somebody to blame.
They
You
also
always
went
want
on
somebody to blame.
Yeah.
to say that reality TV also is what perpetuated and propelled, you know, this famous to be famous influencers who, you know, make all this money to do nothing.
I mean,
Oh, I like that.
I don't know that I can honestly say that that's entirely
I
untrue.
mean, that-
No,
that's,
I don't
that's the one that
disagree.
I
But-
lean into.
But I think that it's more complicated than that. It's not
Yes.
just reality television. It's the advent and the proliferation of social media.
Correct.
So what goes, you know, these kind of
They all go kinda
ecosystems
hand
go
in
hand in
hand.
hand.
Well, and also I would say more so like the dating shows, like like nowadays, like Bachelor, Love Is Blind,
The Circle,
Too Hot to
Ultimatum.
Handle, all this shit. That to me, it reeks more of like people wanting to go on for influencer versus like someone trying to be a housewife. Yes, you still want to make money and do that, but like I think more of like, let me catch my 15 minutes of fame. That's more coming from like dating shows.
Yeah.
Where you just try to make it as far as you can
Totally.
and milk it for all you can.
I personally experienced the transition from social media as Instagram in 2012, transitioning into experiencing cast members and having to read them for, I was like, wait, they're only coming on for social media because I actually watched it on The Bachelor. We had girls that would come in that were very much, you know, authentically wanting to find love. It was probably around 2014 that in just kind of experiencing and being around cast members on these shows by proxy, I'm hearing them and I'm going, oh my God, there's a shift.
They're in it for the wrong reasons.
There are people who are kind of talking about social media.
Yeah.
We're talking about people only having like 300,000 followers. I mean, I saw it happen. I saw people go from nobodies that anybody knew to household names overnight. But there was a sweet spot. And then probably towards the late 2010s, you know, you're not making as much as maybe you did in 2015, but I saw it happen.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Mhm.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
It's completely wild and everything's shifting. And, you know, I think all of this to say, like, I feel like we have a large contribution to the industry.
I think we do too,
Yeah.
and I think we're undervalued. And I think that, you know, going back to Lady McBethany, and to kind of bring it a little full circle, reality television needs to be a part of this conversation. There needs to be a disruptor and a disruptive force in the, in the old way of doing things,
Yeah.
which can account for all facets of reality television being represented. That is reality talent, reality producers, and reality crew. And, I wish that I had the answer, or we had the answers of how that happens and what the pathway to that is. I do think starting to talk about it, us on this podcast, even fucking Bethany Frankel taking to her platinum soapbox, I just wish that the conversation would be a little bit more thoughtful and
Inclusive.
cognizant and inclusive of all of the people that it takes to make these shows. Bethany, individual cast members, sure, they can be pissed. They can have buyer's remorse coming out of a show, regretting something that they said, regretting something that they did, whatever the chastising that came out of that may have been, the canceling, whatever that is. First of all, producers are not responsible for that, A. But B, even if you I think it's part of it's human to want to place blame when you feel defensive or when and I do think that producers are a very easy entity. We are to blame.
I'm blamed for everything.
But exactly. But Bethany, and I'm speaking to Bethany in this, just because you may attribute some slights or perceived grievances in your experience in reality television, of which you've had like 6 shows. So let's just fucking put that into perspective.
Skinny girl on a fucking snowboard, okay?
Oh, yeah.
While you may blame quote unquote producers for exploiting you, the reality is it's the network and the production companies who are at the helm of that. And I would ask that we, the producers and the crew and the people who are in the field and in post, who are working tireless hours for low wages with no fucking benefits to line your pockets with money and that Jim Beam money, maybe include us as part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a conversation that is timely, that is poignant, that is necessary, but it's not just one-sided. And the only one side that there is those who are not a part of the network and studio system. And that's my 2 cents.
I was going to say something and I completely lost my track of mind.
Guys, if you didn't already know, it's time to get into reality TV.
This is the time.
This is the sponsor.
But I also have to say, that's how you know that we love what we do.
That it's a
You
horrible...
get treated like
we're
garbage
masochists.
trash, and you keep coming back.
Yeah, I'm a Pisces.
Oh,
I'm a Virgo, so I'm a fixer.
well,
There
I
we
don't.
go.
Maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't want to offend any other Pisces out there.
No, go ahead, say it.
We're the pathetic,
okay,
we're the pathetic ones. It's okay.
So JJ is obsessed with astrology. Okay, I'm a Libra, and I know a little bit about my sign. But the other day we were doing like reading sentences of like, okay, this is either a Libra, a Virgo, which is what JJ is, or a Pisces, which is
Co-star
what,
astrology, guys.
Yes.
okay,
Co-star
which,
astrology.
which is what
Instagram.
Eeps is, and I'm. I'm like, I don't fucking know. The Virgo is the one I can get most often because it's very,
It's
very
the most rigid.
very
so
specific.
fucking
It's so
rigid.
JJ. But I was struggling between the Pisces and the Libra, and JJ goes, listen, just go. The Pisces is always the most pathetic.
Yeah, it's
the
always
pathetic
Number one,
one.
the most pathetic is, and that's the Pisces. Without fail. 10 out of 10.
Seriously, though, it's like the most pathetic on co-star astrology. They do you guys dirty. Okay.
Right. It's like, favorite night in activity.
Wiping away
the
my tears.
off of my, after reading my teenage diaries.
Oh, God.
Like, it's shit like that. It's like, God damn it.
Guys, that's what EP is going to do tonight after her Norma Ray speech. Okay. She is standing tall. North Country, baby.
Oh, God.
Union.
That's right.
Jesus.
Guys, we work as hard as anybody else in this industry. We love what we do, and we
Yeah.
love giving you guys entertainment, and we're not embarrassed or ashamed of it.
No, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to watch it.
Yeah, and look, I do want to say this. It's not that what we do is like so incredibly easy, but it's also not rocket science. I think once you hone in your skill and your acumen, you're good.
Yeah.
We love what we do. I love storytelling.
That's right.
Even though those out there may not think that that's what we're doing.
I can't wait to start and just get treated like dog shit. Because you know what? Character building.
Character building.
Also, I want to just make one thing clear. Not all producers are one size fits all.
No.
But I have to say this. If ever I have been with a cast member who either needs advisement or is looking for, a pathway, not sure where to go as far as like contracts and things like that, I am always, without fail, an executive producer can attest to this. I am always encouraging them to get somebody to fucking look at their contracts.
Always.
I do not, yes, I work for the networks at the end of the day, but I really kind of work for the production company. And I don't want people that I'm working with, because I look at them as colleagues too, to get taken advantage of.
No.
So I always advise and encourage them to always get contracts to get looked at, always ask for what you want, and don't ever just take no for an answer, because something tells me there's a loophole around here. They sign these 5-year contracts, but the reality is if somebody kind of leaves their contract early, the network could sue them, but they
Never
really
really are
won't.
going to.
It's just like all of these things. So I will always give, what knowledge I have that I've accrued. Motherfucker. Accrued.
said it with such confidence.
I wasn't going to correct her either.
No,
I wasn't
guys,
going to say anything.
It's going to be edited out, but I've been fucking that word up all fucking night. Accrued. what was I going to say? Oh, the knowledge just over the years.
Yeah.
You know, and I do the best that I can to encourage any and all cast members. So I understand that Bethany and what she said was a little bit more categorical, but I personally, and I'm not saying all producers are like that. Some people just don't give a shit. They click in, they click out. I'm an empath. I fucking hate it, but here I am.
Mm-hmm.
So
Integrity.
also, I am getting my voice back, and I apologize for any vocal fry that you may have heard during this recording. Okay.
Disclaimer, 2.5 hours
It is a
in.
disclaimer. God.
7 hours.
All right, Betsy. So,
Yeah.
how do you feel? I mean,
Oh, sorry. Are we not wrapping up?
okay, so having taken it all in, I actually kind of want your thoughts now.
On what?
Everything
Is this
that
the quiz?
No. Just final thoughts, because it's clear that, you know, executive producer hogged the mic the entire time. No, I'm kidding. It's obviously clear that we did most of the speaking, and having been a viewer yourself, for our listeners out there who are just like you, because they're just like us.
Stars are just like us.
They go to the grocery store too.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been in a long time, but yeah.
What's your biggest takeaway? What's your rose and your thorn of, what's the high and the low of your takeaway from this? And guys, we'll sign off there. It's all on you, baby.
Wow.
Backing up the horse.
I don't like the thorn and the rose.
Just general takeaways.
Yeah, what are your general takeaways?
thoughts?
Well, I was very happy to learn really more about this strike that's happening, because I, as some may know, I really do top line. I read the headlines and then I keep it moving.
TikTok.
Yeah. Read is
And Yahoo News. Let's
yeah.
not forget about Yahoo News.
Yet she missed Kyle's TikTok video.
Yeah, I scroll. Yeah, that didn't come
Her
up on my
proclamation.
algorithm.
The ring was
the
gone.
what?
The
Yeah,
ring was
the
gone
ring.
because
I was lifting weights.
My
and donuts,
precious.
coffee, Porsche. Prep school.
God.
Westlake.
What was the question?
Your general takeaways, because you know you kind of straddle the line.
Well, I loved really getting in depth about like the streaming stuff and like how it's, you know, all the companies are going bankrupt, because that's, I never really think about it from that way, but it does make a lot of sense. And obviously thinking about the actors and also the writers making no money. And so the strike itself makes sense to me, whereas I didn't really think too much of it now versus, you know, 2007. So I thought that was interesting. I obviously know you and I know Eeps. So the stuff that y'all talked about reality TV and kind of getting treated like shit and not really being taken,
God,
you know,
dumped on.
like that to me, unfortunately, isn't a huge surprise. Just because we, believe it or not, as much as we talk on the mic, we talk very, very much off the mic. I've been here for 8 hours. So, I know.
Been 7.
All right.
She got here at 1:30.
Yeah, I got it. Anyway.
Oh, it's 8.
Okay. Anyway, it's a full work day for me, but in reality,
We went from day to night, guys.
But honestly, in reality, this is what I learned. Today was a full 8-hour work day, but really in reality TV, it was only half a day.
Touche.
That was my
way.
big takeaway.
Is that why we work you like this?
Yeah.
We're like 8 hours is nothing.
We're like,
I
this
know.
is easy.
Yeah.
I'm ready
And
for lunch.
All I've done is sat. So
honestly.
joke's really on me. But no, because I know y'all, I know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that maybe other listeners and viewers don't know. So I think this is actually hopefully going to be really informative and eye-opening. But yeah, it's interesting thinking about unions, because I honestly, that's why I was like, what's a union? I mean, I knew what a union was, but like as far as reality versus scripted, like I don't really know what that looks like day to day. So there was a lot of interesting stuff. I don't know what my thorn is.
AMPTP.
You're low.
The studios.
Yeah, the studios guys. Bob
They're the
Iger.
thorn.
Really?
The entertainment
75,000
executives
calls
who
today?
bring in, you know, tens of millions of dollars every year while
And our
we're
writers are
not able
living-
to make rent.
Yeah, and our
Not
Yeah,
us
it's
specifically,
just
but you know,
sad.
as a collective.
and the writers are living below the poverty line, and so are a lot of people who work in reality TV.
Yeah.
They have to work
A
hand over
lot.
fist.
And people are watching reality TV, whether you want to admit it or not. And I know we live in a world now where people, you know, it's not.
It's kind of like
as
ironic.
embarrassing. Yeah. Oh yeah. But like people are watching it. Just like I know the people out there that are complaining about Tom Sandoval being filmed. I know that you're going to watch it. You're going to watch Vanderpump when it comes
Right.
out, and there's no shame in that, because I'll be right there with you. So let's stop shitting on reality TV, because they shit on themselves.
Because we're masochists.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
We honestly love inflicting pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we just spoke for 2 hours, basically describing our industry specific to reality TV and our genre as like the trap door to a porta potty. Like, we're just right there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
No, we love what we do, though.
We do.
That's how you keep coming back.
Well, yeah, that's how you know that we're really in it, because...
We keep coming back to that abuse.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Anyway, guys.
Anyway.
Guys, for the domestic violence hotline, the number is I don't have it off the top of my head anymore, but we'll plug it.
I'm like one of those people that stands in front of the mirror. It's like, stupid, stupid, stupid. And hits my head, you know? I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go.
God.
Running the Florida Day and all cats event. Woo, woo, woo. No, never.
Wow.
Never.
All right. Well,
All right, guys.
Shall
Thank
we?
you for joining us
Thank you for
on this
hanging in there.
3.5 hour car ride
yeah.
of a podcast episode. We hope that you got all the information that you were looking for. And if not, please hit us up in the DMs.
Yeah.
We are happy to answer all of your questions. I feel like we're all kind of caught up now in DMs. And yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Rock and roll.
Ask and you shall receive.
Smoking my meth. I'm ready, guys. DMs, send them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you were talking about Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, so I
there we
kind of
go.
get the
Full circle.
full circle.
I'm
Good
kidding,
night.
guys. It's been an 8-hour day, so Betsy's a wimp. She also wants to join the industry, so loser. You know what? There are people who really want it and will work for nothing, little to no wages. Okay. Anyway, all right, guys.
Prostitution. Not above it or below it. Oh, sex worker. Sex worker, sorry.
Roxanne, turn on the red light. Guys,
Turn on the red light.
you see this?
We're just trying to get out.
It's honestly,
Now I will
land
let us in.
that plane.
I'm like, turn on the red light.
Betsy's literally been waiting for us to fucking finish for the last like 8 hours.
Delusion is setting
And
in.
yet I find myself in this fucking predicament where I feel like she's pushing the proverbial shopping cart up against my little fucking ankles like the little kid does to the mom. Anyway, okay, bad joke. All right, guys, thank you for joining us. And as always, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And as always, please leave us a 5-star review. Or give me a 1-star, because that's where we're at these days. I know. Vocal fry, grading, what else? Underbite, 50 pounds overweight, wheeze. Anyway, all right, guys, thank you for joining us. And later.
Bye.
Bye.